Alrighty. Here we are then. Okay. Welcome to Soulcalibur 3 Chronicles of the Sword, special game mode, and a nice 4 hours of your life you won't ever get back. Timer will start in about 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so Soulcalibur 3 is the fourth installment in the Soulcalibur series. The first one was called Soul Blade, second Soulcalibur, and after that they kept the Soulcalibur name. Soulcalibur 3 is PS2 exclusive and the first game mode to feature the Create a Soul function, which is the fancy Soulcalibur name for custom characters. And they created this game mode specifically for that feature. This is Chronicles of the Sword. It takes place on a imaginary world, an unnamed continent where there are three great nations, the Grandal Empire, the Kingdom of Dalkia, and the Haltese Republic. And so you create the main character, who is a cadet in the military academy of the Grandal Empire. And you begin in the tutorial in the first couple Chronicles, learning the ways of war in this game mode.
Did you enjoy my dance?
And so this game mode is a strategy RPG element, pretty simple RPG elements. You have levels and stats, but it's nothing super amazing like last night's WWE Day of Reckoning. You don't even get to pick the direction your stats go in. You just choose classes for your characters. And those classes determine... darn it. Those classes determine your stats and what weapons you can equip. And as you level up, you'll get more and more stats and other things. Thank you, Shay. So the game is in two parts. First part is the tactical map where you maneuver your units around up to 5 in order to take enemy strongholds. And then the battle map, which takes place when you enter battle for either taking a stronghold or sometimes meeting units out in the field. As you saw there, units, and as it explained to me in the text I tried to skip, the units can just sit and hit each other on the field, which generally is kind of slow, so we tend to ignore that. Most of the time, the Chronicles each have a specific victory condition, and most of the time it's to take the enemy's main stronghold. You can see there are various level strongholds around the map, ranging from 1 to 3, and then each side has a main stronghold, which is level 4, or in later Chronicles, level 5. The level determines how many hit points it has. It also determines the effect of missions that are in strongholds, and we'll see missions down the line. At the very beginning of the game, missions mean very little. Even the ones, there aren't very many of them, and even the ones that are there don't matter very much, but later on, missions will greatly impact the course of the run. Now in the tutorial here, none of the enemies move, so it's just a really quick path straight up the side here, the quickest way to the enemy stronghold. Later on, of course, the enemies will move around the map and try and get in my way and take my strongholds and otherwise inconvenience me. And I have to, a great deal of the run is actually planning around the enemies on the field, fighting as few battles as I can, or getting them in such a situation where I minimize time loss by having to deal with them. The game is tied entirely to Soulcalibur 3 itself, so it's a little bit of a tricky case. This is kind of sorta a new game plus, because I've already played several thousand hours in the game and unlocked everything it's possible to unlock, and that affects this game by giving me more classes that I can use, more advanced classes, different weapon styles and stuff that you wouldn't normally have access to at the beginning of a brand new game. But the only way to get a brand new game is to play without a memory card, maybe. I've never tried that before. Or to erase your data from your memory card at the beginning of every run, which would be a pain and also make the run a lot slower, so I tend not to like to run that way. In addition to your main character, there are a number of units with individual names and actual personalities. They have dialogue and stuff over the course of this game, like in most RPGs, that you'll recruit along the way. We're not going to use any of them because they're useless. Or not useless, but just not as effective as the custom characters that I can create for myself. In addition to the main character, you can make up to 10 total. And you can have up to 5 at a time on the battlefield, so I have recruited 5. It's one of the really neat things about running it is that the create a soul function is pretty broad, even in Soulcalibur 3, which is simple compared to the later Soulcaliburs. You can make a wide variety of things. I have a lot of fun during many of my runs making Final Fantasy characters or other such entertaining figures. For here, since we didn't get any donations for names, and since we were a little bit behind schedule, I just went with some of the generic default skins that were available. You may notice that the default name for every created character is their class. So the leader here is Dancer. And she is accompanied by 4 swordmasters, 4 people all with the same name.
Did you enjoy my dance?
Next time I have this in a marathon, hopefully some people will donate for some names, so I'll have to make some interesting things. Might have been. I swap back and forth between my own creations and doing Final Fantasy characters. So now we can see that this guy is retreating back to defend the main stronghold. Most AIs will do this. In Chronicle 1 here, we are training against Abilia, the sharpest woman in the academy, in a, just a mock battle, teaching us the ways under the care of our instructor, General Gerardo, and we form a bit of a rivalry and friendship with her over the course of this if you pay attention to the storyline. Now, I've made one dancer. A question that often comes up on my YouTube videos and my streams is why I have 1 dancer and 4 swordmasters. The dancer has access to the Soul of Xianghua and is the only class that does, which you've seen me abusing with the spin to win move here. And here's our first cutscene with Abilia.
Good luck to you.
Cutscenes are unskippable.
Fight with all your might, as I will.
I ought to do a donation incentive for English-Japanese voices too, because I always keep it on English, but the Japanese can be fun. Now, the one drawback to a dancer is that they have really lousy stats. Their stats are among the very worst in the game. You wouldn't know that my attack is that bad based on the amount of damage I'm doing, but this is a high damage attack and a very high damage weapon. Soulcalibur, Xianghua's Soulcalibur weapon does give a lot of attack power boost.
I'll take you anytime you want.
However, especially later on in the game, levels don't matter as much as they do in most RPGs because it's all about, in the fighting ring. But especially later on in the game, low stat characters like dancers of any level can be effectively defeated in just a couple of hits. And although the spin to win combo is extremely abusive, there are moments if they that they can get out of it or get me first, and then things get particularly spotty. A party of dancers would not be able to pass several of the challenges in this game, at least not without wasting a lot of time. Especially since they wouldn't gain enough experience to get strong enough to survive. So I fill up the rest of my crew with swordmasters, who are the highest stat characters in the game by far. They can also use a much larger variety of weapons, but it's of a specific type. There were 17 styles made just for this game, which are basically everything you'll see pretty much all the enemies in the run using, with 23 exceptions. And they were made specifically for the Create a Soul and for this method. And for the most part, they're watered-down versions of regular Soulcalibur weapon styles. But they're also... Each of the classes has 2 of the original Soulcalibur characters styles that they can unlock once you've raised a character in that class to 30 over the course of playing the game. This game specifically, Chronicles of the Sword, not any of the other game modes. Is that possible? So the Dancer is the only class that has access to Sword of Changhua, so in order to use this abusive move, I have to have a Dancer. And the only way I'll get enough experience for her to remain viable throughout the run is to make her the leader. But since it's the best for eliminating most enemies, it works out. The Sword Masters can use any of the 17 specifically custom styles, but none of the regular Soulcalibur styles. They were broken enough as is. So I give them the katana, and we'll get to see them in action down the line here. For now, it's just the Dancer show, but we'll get more. These two characters here, Jing Kai and this character here, Xiaoxin, are actually two characters that can be recruited later on if I were to fight them in this battle. Since I don't fight them, they both ignore me and charge ahead, and I ignore them, charging down the middle. I won't recruit either of them, which saves a tiny bit of dialogue, which doesn't matter. But it's something interesting in a casual playthrough. They have a couple different lines of dialogue at certain points. They're among General Gerardo's lieutenants. In this chronicle, we are battling against General Gerardo, the leader of the whole Grandal Army and the leader of the Perusia Grandal Military Academy. This is basically our graduation test, hence the name of the chronicle, Leaving the Nest, there. And so in order to prove ourselves worthy graduates, we have to defeat General Gerardo in this mock battle.
You are strong. One day, you will succeed in life. Of course, only if you manage to defeat me.
Battle 1, fight! Battle 2, fight!
Yep. And that's just how bad Dancers are. As much damage as I'm doing, a level 5 assassin like Edith was able to do that much damage to me in just a couple of hits. If she'd kept up the attack, I would have suffered my first death of the, my first loss of the run in very short order. And you know, it's the case in fighting games that there's always a character or two that usually is pretty easy, but any time of day, any run, they could suddenly decide to be a hero and start wailing on you and hand you a loss. Well, that applies to all 100 characters, 100 plus characters that I have to defeat. Probably about 150 people I fight over the course of this run. And sometimes and usually every run there are a handful of them, 4 or 5 or 6 or so, that I don't expect, who normally are easy, including nameless guys. Okay, actually. So storyline-wise, now that we've graduated, we've been assigned our own command, which is this border post by the Kingdom of Dalkia, and suddenly in the middle of the night we're attacked by bandits. And that's going to be the story until we finish, which kind of gets sort of interesting. For now, about these unit types. In addition to being classes, your characters are certain unit types. There are 4 of them: infantry, cavalry, knights, and bandits. And they determine your speed and your kind of substats here on the overworld. They're kind of hidden stats you can't see at all at any time. But basically, bandits, they all have different speeds, how much damage they do to towers, and how much damage they do to other units if you just let them fight on the field. Normally, I use bandits, because bandits are the second fastest on the field and the second fastest at taking towers. They do the second most damage to strongholds. Knights do the most damage to strongholds, but they are horribly, horribly slow. They're less than half the speed of bandits. And cavalry are a little bit faster than bandits are, but they do very, very little damage to strongholds. Bandits do 5 points per hit, and cavalry do 3. So bandits are just overall the very best for the speed run. However, on this particular map, it's a special victory condition where I can't just win by defeating the enemy stronghold. I have to defeat all enemies on the field. And they are not interested simply in following after me, charging towards me. So I have to split my forces up to fight both of them, and I have to account for their speed running towards me. as you've noticed, it takes a long time to load up battles from the world map. And that causes quite a bit of time loss. So if I charged forward with my main character up there as a bandit, she would reach this stronghold right here, and she would take it down long before these two guys over here who are moving towards it enter in. But by making her an infantry, so she's slower and does less damage to the tower, she will take it just after the last guy enters. And that way I save having to load up multiple fights against them, or wait for them, which I have to do pretty much anyway.
Decisive battle.
Since this map is small enough, I don't, and there's only a couple of strongholds after that, which will be taken care of before she arrives, I don't actually lose any real time. I don't lose very much time changing her to an infantry, and any amount that I do lose is gained back by not having to load multiple fights.
It's over. It was a good match.
One of the other things you may have noticed me do is when giving orders, I will sometimes wait a bit before giving somebody else an order. And that's because, as you can see, the game pauses when you give orders, so I want to avoid pausing the menu as much as possible. And whenever a decisive battle starts, as it says there, or an encounter, anytime it loads up Soulcalibur combat, all the characters who are involved in the Soulcalibur combat have their orders wiped, cleared. So they'll basically stop right there. So if you're taking a stronghold that has enemies in it, once they're done taking it, they will stop and not go forward again. However, if I order them to go through a stronghold that's unoccupied, they will continue on, keep going on until they meet an enemy that forces them into combat. So in order to avoid having to give multiple orders at times, I'll send one character forward first and then wait a few seconds before issuing all the runs behind them so that they won't get into the combat and won't have their orders cleared.
Final battle. Fight.
One of the interesting things about this game is the mix of generic characters and named characters who are usually higher level and seemingly more important. Do a pretty good job of showing off all the variety of things you can see in the game mode. They sort of had a similar thing in Soulcalibur 4 with the Tower of Souls, but Soulcalibur 5 really didn't have any kind of game mode that you could use custom characters for that showed off custom characters besides playing online. And so now I still have a guy over here in this stronghold, but like most AI, he's programmed to run back and defend the main stronghold once it starts taking damage, so I can effectively ignore him and finish off the last three guys at once. So as we're attacking these bandits, we're going to fight the bandit leader, and the two guys he has with him are going to be particularly interesting looking bandits, as we're going to see. That's a bit of a hint. The damage that, one of the annoying things is that bandits actually do 1 less point of damage to strongholds. They do 4 points, which are also an infantry deal, but it's one of the reasons why being an infantry doesn't lose a whole lot of time on this map and ends up saving me time with the triple battle up there.
Battle 1. Fight.
So as we can see, this guy's name is Grandal, which means it's a generic name for a Grandal soldier, and he's dressed like a Grandal soldier, even though he's supposed to be a bandit. And this is an important storyline point going into the next Chronicle, and basically through the first half of the game. It is the plot, as it were. Pretty simple plot and story to this game, since it was a, pulled out of their hats, semi-medieval fantasy story for a bonus game mode, but still has a couple little intricacies in it that are pretty clever.
Did you enjoy my
I've always kind of
dance?
thought of it as like a Final Fantasy Tactics Light,
I have absolutely no intention of dying here.
although it's similar. It tends to be a very similar storyline to any tactical or strategy RPG, as it were. When you're commanding units and stuff in armies, it always tends to be a mixture of political forces fighting, and then, you know, the secretly evil underbelly of demons who are trying to take out all the kingdoms. And that part exists in this story too, although much more lightly in the background. Okay, so now, at the beginning of Chronicle 4, the Kingdom of Dalkia has suddenly declared war on us. They claim that their declaration of war is in retaliation for being attacked by Grandal soldiers. Right near where we were... Oop, need to go back. Back to Bandit. Okay. Oh, that's the bad one. Oh well. Hopefully I don't mess up and cost myself a lot of time here. That's a better strategy anyway, I found out. Oh well. I'll deal with it. So we go up against Dalkia. Now this is also where SC percent actually takes place. So normally, a normal run of this game, any percent is like any 8% game, you try to finish as fast as possible. But my favorite game mode to run is SC percent, as I call it, which is short for Soulcalibur percent. Because the 23 Soulcalibur characters exist in Chronicles of the Sword as optional super bosses at various points spread throughout the 20 Chronicles. We're about to fight the first one, not here, but in that other building down there that I sent my main leader towards. So in a normal run, of course, you avoid them as much as possible, and since they're mostly out of the way, there's only 2 characters I ever fight in any percent run. But now I'm going to have to take the time to spread out this way. This is Luna, our primary rival and antagonist in the game. We
You're
fight her
certainly a
4
handful.
times.
I shall remember your name, as you are the only one who has provided a worthy challenge.
Battle
So you think
one.
she's really tough, right? Not really.
Battle 2. Fight. Knockout.
One of the things that makes Sword Masters... yeah. One of the things that makes Sword Masters so great is, or the katana style in particular so great, I should say, is this weapon, the Murasame. In Soulcalibur weapons do not have stats like normal RPG weapons do. You know, in a normal Final Fantasy, you upgrade from the copper sword to the bronze sword to the steel sword, mithril sword, or whatever. In this game, your default weapons, they have attributes instead, similar to, say, Final Fantasy X. And that's the case through most of the Soulcalibur games. Soulcalibur 2 also had a lot of different weapons with a lot of properties on them. And they could be anything from increasing your attack power to increasing your defense, or making enemies sometimes get hit by a guard break when they block, or occasionally avoid throws or ring outs and such things. And so each weapon style has at least one, sometimes 2 ultimate weapons that have 4 properties on them, which are generally the ones you want to use. And in each, there are a couple of different ways to gain back life with your characters. In Soulcalibur 2, I always noticed that there were certain weapons that increased your health whenever you made an attack. And some of them were particularly easy to abuse, like Sung Mina's ultimate weapon, Prasvog, or however that's pronounced, has a attribute where it restores life whenever you attack. So if you do one of her moves where she's swinging her weapon around in a flourish constantly, she will gain her life back really, really fast and almost refill from 2 or 3 swings of that from nearly empty. That kind of health regen exists in this game. There are weapons that do that as well, but they realized that they had it way overbalanced, and so they toned it down in this game. So there are a couple of them that are okay, but they're not nearly as effective there. However, there are also weapons which restore life when you deal damage, and those weapons are significantly more powerful in Soulcalibur 3. And the Murasame is one of those. It actually has a negative attribute, as some of them do, like several of the soul edges. It drains my life over time, but it also greatly increases attack. It increases attack more as the as the battle continues on. The longer the battle goes, the more your attack power increases. And it is vampiric, restoring life to you from the damage you deal, and it does a huge amount. So here's Astaroth. In his second player costume, he's a hammerhead. All of the Soulcalibur characters on the map are in their secondary costumes, and several of them are very amusing.
Did you enjoy?
They usually, most of them aren't very similar to a lot of the other older costumes or newer costumes. They're rather unique, and they're just extremely amusing. It's one of the reasons why I like this style is being able to see those alternate costumes. Okay. So that's usually how that goes. However, Astaroth sometimes can destroy me. He's a level 60 barbarian, so as easy as I made that look, if he manages to land a hit on me, he can kill me in just 1 or 2 hits. Barbarians are one of the weaker classes in the game. They're one of the 6 starting classes, which are all much weaker than the later ones you unlock by playing the game more. But even so, at level 60, he has a pretty good amount of hit points, over 400, while I have less than, I have like 250 with my Dancer right now. And his attack power is more than enough to combine with Astaroth's severe attack power. This was an example of a mission. You may have noticed that I was sliding around the map slightly. My jump kick there was landed way short because of the whirlwind effect on this stronghold is pushing me around. We're starting to see the stronghold missions take effect now. They'll really start making a difference in some of these battles. I'm fortifying up my strongholds in order to prevent them from being taken by the enemy before I reach my goal. Also, I will also do that at certain points in the game as a safety measure, because when you're defeated, you don't die. Your character will respawn after a certain amount of time at the nearest level 3 stronghold to where you were defeated. I should have done something to the name so I could tell the characters apart. Kind of an underestimated aspect of just running with default names. Usually I like to name them something, but I decided to leave them default to be funny, and now as I'm thinking about it, I'm starting to regret it. One of the things that it's important is that the L and R buttons can be used to track between characters. Oh, I have to say something about this guy we're fighting. Arion, this boss, is big. He is otherwise just a normal character that you can custom create yourself, but there are 2 characters in the game that for some reason are just exceptionally large. You can't make different size characters in Soulcalibur 3. Everybody is just of default sizes. You know, all your men are the same size and your women are the same size. But for whatever reason, 2 of the bosses in Chronicles of the Sword, you know, or otherwise just have all the same parts that you can custom make yourself, but they are, for whatever reason, much larger. Doesn't affect the hitboxes at all as far as I've been able to tell, and they're not hard or anything, just noteworthy. Storyline-wise, we're advancing on Dalkia now, and we've got a couple more recruits, including Abilia. She's been sent here as our second in command as we continue our advance against Dalkia. So whatever, we can now use her, but of course we're not going to. So what was I saying about that before I distracted myself with Arion? I'll probably remember it later. Anyway, this mission has two Soulcalibur characters that I have to deal with. It also has a special loss condition. I shouldn't have started that fight yet. I needed to wait for all three of these guys, but oh well. The special loss condition, there's usually only one way to win each Chronicle, but there are lots of ways to lose it. You will always lose a Chronicle if your main stronghold is taken, or if all 5 of your characters are eliminated at once. As long as you know, let them revive, pretty much, with a couple of exceptions. You can always lose characters and keep trying as long as you keep at least one alive, but you can't lose all of them, and you can't let your main stronghold get taken. In addition, in this Chronicle, I will lose if both sides of this bridge are taken. So even on an any % run, I have to have at least one character sitting here. I have to have at least one character here to defend, to prevent them from taking the strongholds, because I will not be able to take the main stronghold before they do. But in the case of SC %, I have to advance on this stronghold anyway, because there's a Soulcalibur character I have to defeat over on the right.
Battle 1. Fight. Knockout.
I always have to do something after battle. I usually like doing taunts, but unfortunately the 17 custom styles do not have taunts, so I just do other things instead. For the most part, what you do in the battle afterwards doesn't affect time too much. However, if an enemy is knocked out of the ring, whether or not they actually are defeated by ring out, it will load up the end screen a little bit faster. It's not very much. It's like a half second or a second, but it is noticeable, having seen it happen so many times. And if I engage an enemy in a throw, if they don't fall dead immediately after I defeat them and stagger around, you can grab them in a throw. And if the throw is very long, you will have to the battle will not end and go to the main screen until the throw completes in its entirety. So I used to like to grab people and throw them when I was playing casually, but I knew from long experience that that would extend the time, so I don't do that anymore. Otherwise, hitting them, even if they're juggled in the air, doesn't seem to affect the loading time for the end of battle report. So here is Ivy. Ivy is a pirate. She is a pirate, I guess, because the other pirate is Cervantes, who's her father. That's the only logical reason. Sometimes the classes assigned to the Soulcalibur characters don't make a whole lot of sense. Oh yay, got lucky there. So normally, in any other game of Soulcalibur, when you you ring out an enemy, you defeat them. However, in Chronicles of the Sword, and only in Chronicles of the Sword, it doesn't actually mean an instant victory, it just means half of their life is gone. Ivy's normally pretty tough. Pirates are a higher level class, they have pretty good stats. She usually has a good AI, but I got pretty lucky there. She let me ring her out really fast. For the most part, I win like 95% of my battles with my sword masters, but occasionally, especially the Soulcalibur characters who are level 60, they can turn things around and just wail on me until I die or am defeated. Because despite the fact that we're using all these sharp weapons, nobody is seriously injured.
Fight.
Such a way that they can't recover. Rowan here is kind of unique because he's the boss of this Chronicle. However, he is the only boss in the first 19 Chronicles who does not stay inside his main stronghold. When I play casually, I like to take all the strongholds and defeat all the enemies and basically play completionist. And so that makes this Chronicle rather anticlimactic because it's the only time that you will take a completely empty main stronghold to win the Chronicle. And then Rowan has some text after the battle's over. When I'm playing on any %, because of the way I go through my route, I actually don't even fight him at all. So it's just kind of an amusing little quirk there. Rowan is the general in charge, but one of the main generals of the whole Dalkian army, but he doesn't like to sit back and stay inside a citadel. He's always running around on his horse. I also love these stick figures jousting, fighting against each other here.
Battle 1. Fight.
Did I do it? Did I do it? It's over. I won't hold back next time.
Did I do it? Yeah, the custom character lines in this game are really great. Maybe that's the reason I've never offered it in Japanese, because I just enjoy hearing the cheesy dialogue so much. I never get tired of it. Other people do, and so they'll swap it to Japanese in a hurry, but...
Decisive battle.
It really, since there are 3 other paths of crossing this river that seem to work
Battle
particularly
1.
well,
Fight.
it really makes you wonder why that other bridge is of such major importance that we can't allow it to be taken. Bad. One of the problems with the dialogues is that certain taunt actions take longer than others, and certain
Battle 2.
taunt
Fight.
dialogues take longer than others. Shanghua's taunt is a short duration one,
Be careful from now
but
on.
the dialogue she's using is actually long, so it cuts it off and only uses half of it. Nor the whole line that she's supposed to say is, "Hey, you're not half bad." But because that's longer than the action, the game is slightly unbalanced in using it, and only hear the back half. Other commands, you only hear the front half. It's kind of interesting. And once again, I'm holding a character back to so that I don't have to issue multiple commands.
Final battle. Fight. Ring out.
It's over. This time, I am the victor.
One of the sad things about the speedrun of this game is you never really get a look at the stats, because at the end of battle it tells you which of your stats increase, but they never tell you which ones, they don't tell you what they are. You do actually have numbers, and you can scroll through them in your character menu, but to do that, that's in the menu screen when it pauses the game. So in a speedrun, since they're not that important for me to know, and there's no randomness in them or anything, it's a set progression path for every character class, the stats they gain each level. It's just not worth pausing the game to check. So here's Cervantes. Oh yeah. For a second I thought I was still the dancer. That's why I was having problems. They use similar but not quite the same buttons on their particular exploit maneuvers. You can see just how powerful the Murasame is in restoring my life, however. Cervantes, of course, is also a pirate. He's the whole reason that there is a pirate class, most likely. And he's got a pretty darn good AI.
It looks like I'm just too strong
It's
for you.
not super unusual for me to lose a character against him, which is one of the reasons I bring 2, but I also bring 2 because if I only brought 1, he wouldn't be able to take the stronghold before the other 3 on the other side took the main stronghold. And then my run would be invalid for not defeating the Soulcalibur character. Oh good. Oh, 2 of them, wow. This happens it's been happening recently, and I don't know how I've been getting it to happen. Because I figured out what a lot of the enemies' AI patterns are, how I can manipulate them. But there are some of them who seem very strange, and they're manipulated in the oddest ways. And so I'm still learning how to manipulate some of them. And this is one that's been happening recently that... Normally, all 4 run back to defend the main stronghold, and then I have to fight 4 of them. But recently, they've been sending 2 over here instead, which is perfectly fine with me, because that's 2 less characters I have to fight.
Decisive battle. Battle 1. Fight. Battle 2. Fight.
Okay.
Did you enjoy my dance?
Okay, the moon wears silver armor. Chronicles 6 is the second battle against Luna. This time she brings her Klesser Pemdo. Don't ask me what Klesser Pemdo is or where it comes from. It's the name given to her 4 elite guard. Female fighters who are supposed to embody elements in some way. Of course, Soulcalibur does not actually have elements associated with it, or in its combat system or anything. So when they're defending strongholds, which they do in 2 different missions, this one and another one later on, they will be, their strongholds have missions that embrace the element that they're supposed to represent. And this is the first mission where you really see strong and annoying missions come into play to interfere with your combat. So, since I'm a master strategist, I've devised a way to totally get around fighting the worst ones. So first we have a couple of generic people to punch through. We have a lizard man to deal with, the Soulcalibur character on this map.
Fight.
You're very good at swinging over my head.
Did you enjoy my dance?
I guess so. Okay, haircut indeed. So that's what I was talking about before and then distracted myself. So you can use the L1 and R1 buttons to quickly switch between your characters. What's important to note about it is that it saves in its memory which character you were just on, regardless of where you go on the map, or even if you select other characters manually. Selecting another character does not set that as the default for your L1, R1 buttons. It will, if you go to your main character and with the L1 button and then give him an order, and then select the second player manually to give an order, and then hit R1, it won't go to the third character, it'll go to the second character. Loopy here is fire, which you can tell by her map and the fact that she has all guard break. All of her attacks, as any Soulcalibur experts know, lightning on your weapon means that it's a guard break attack that will cause you to have a guard break stun if you block the attack. Normally only certain attacks will give guard break, but with this mission, all of her attacks will do that. So yeah, it's rough when you're trying to defend. Luckily, I don't care about defending. I am all-out offense, like pretty much you want to be in a speedrun trying to kill people as soon as possible. Oh, I forgot, I need to kill Lizard Man. You can do that. Lizard Man has nothing to say, of course, because he's a lizard man. He is an assassin, which is kind of fitting and kind of weird, considering he's got an axe and a shield. Not too many assassins I know of that use a nasty-looking chopping axe and a shield. But I guess there was nowhere else for him to go, and no other classes, no other characters that really fit the assassin mold in this stuff. His AI is very good, and in addition, assassins are one of the very best classes. They have really, really good attack power, so he can do a lot of damage. They're a little bit of glass cannons, although at level 60 against a level 2, his defense is good enough. But he managed not to hit me at all. If he had, I would have taken quite a lot of damage. Okay. So anyway, since all my characters are named Swordmaster, it's going to be hard to remember where I'm at in the L1, R1 buttons. So next up is Elua of Wind. She has Whirlwind. We kind of saw a little bit of that before. She is not very hard. None of the Cluster Pemdo are very hard for the most part, and at any stage, just when they have nasty missions. And Whirlwind, when it's strong, can be really nasty, but for the most part, it's not bad. There are a couple of Whirlwind fights that I'm afraid of. This is not one of them.
I won't hold back next time.
Whirlwind moves you around in a circle. It pushes you, and it doesn't push you in just a straight direction. It actually does push in a circle away from the enemy, so it's moderately annoying. When it's powerful enough, it'll push the enemy so far away that I can't combo them properly with my moves. But when it's light, it doesn't do enough to really bother me. The ones I'm skipping are Quake and Ice. Ice in particular is one of the nastiest missions in the game, and we're going to see that. It's basically any video game, you know ice physics. You slide around, you have no control over yourself, and of course, on all the ice missions, there are no barriers by the walls, so there are edges that you'll just slide off of, and on the very worst ice missions, the enemy AIs are programmed to realize, hey, you get pushed back even if you block very far, so I'm just going to use attacks that cause pushback.
Now, it's time to collect on your debts.
But I never fought you before.
Fight.
This is Cure effect on her right now. We've seen it once or twice before, I think. The little glowy green yellow around her means that she's getting life back constantly. Not a very big problem most of the time. Here's AG of Earth. She would be on Quake. Quake causes an effect where if you're standing on the ground, every 3 seconds, the announcer gives a countdown, and after it counts down from 3, 2, 1, boom, the ground shakes, and if you're standing on the ground, you will get hit by a standing shake stagger stun, basically leaving you vulnerable to attack. Also interrupting any combos you have and other things, so it's rather annoying.
I won't hold back next
Bring
time.
the girl, pay the debt. Oh, wow. Oh, what a reference. You know, actually, Luna has almost that kind of past to her. We'll go into that later. But now we've defeated Luna and her Cluster Pemdo. We've almost taken the entirety of Dalkia out. And now all of a sudden the Haltese Republic has declared war on us too. I guess they think that we're weakened from our constant war, so they're going to take advantage and seize our nation's lands and stuff. And so Abilia is left in charge of the advance force taking Dalkia, and we are sent to pack our bags and take the rest of our army, our main officers, I guess, and leave the rest of the army in her care. And we're running to attack the Haltis to defend ourselves against them. Our characters actually have a little dialogue, but they're upset that she's left behind to take all the glory while we have to continue fighting fresh troops with our tired, ragged bodies. But General Gerardo appears out of nowhere and says, "Oh, seems kind of rough for you. I'll help you out." You know, General Gerardo, reminder, is the general of the whole Grandal Empire. But he's put himself under our command in our unit during this advance. Good to know that in the middle of 2 wars, the emperor of the entire, or the general of the entire Grandal Empire has the leisure to choose which battlefield he goes under, and even to serve under somebody else. If you're playing casually, he's actually a really strong character to use too when you're first playing the game, because he's level 15. My main character, who's done most of the fighting this entire time, is also level 15. And he's also a knight, which is one of the very, very most powerful classes in the game, and something you don't normally have access to until you round out this game a lot and raised a lot of characters up a lot of levels. So having powerful stats like that, and the lance is a pretty decent weapon just for the amount of reach it gives. So even a couple of runs that I do, he'd be a legitimate character to use. But when you have sword masters with katanas, you don't need any old men with lances. Although the lance was actually the, even after discovering the power of the katana, the lance was the first weapon I needed to use to defeat the final boss, Strife. He was that tough. Okay. Okay, you go attack Rock. You go attack him. You go all the way there. So this map has some interesting features to it. Or just interesting AI commands. They are generally commanded, their general AI pattern wants them to converge on me. And so they, even coming up from these sides, they will continue doing that. While I charge straight down the middle, they'll try to fall in behind me. Some of them will eventually give up. But in order to prevent them from being able to reach me, I go ahead and fortify a couple of strongholds behind me, just to make sure that they'll never reach.
It looks like I'm just too strong for you.
It makes a pretty amusing picture later on, with just the swarm following after you as you carve out your own little red path of strongholds. Okay, the character here is Rock, not to be confused with The Rock, who's busy battling skyscrapers and such things. Rock, of course, the original Astaroth model, is apparently a Native American washed across the sea or raised by Native Americans or something. He has one of the weirdest stories. And he's gotten a mammoth head. This is his secondary costume, and it's glorious. Also, no, you can't sit on me. He's a gladiator, which is very odd. I would have thought he looks perfect for a barbarian. But they decided to make him a gladiator instead, because I guess they didn't want the gladiator or the barbarian to be both Rock's and Astaroth's weapons, because they're too similar. Even though the sage is both Sophitia and Cassandra, so same argument. Whatever. But so he's a gladiator, so whatever. He's reasonably tough, but his stats are generally pretty good, but his AI tends to be awful, so it's not a... He's never much of a challenge for me. Plus, he's in a nice little stadium with easy ring outs. Luckily, it doesn't waste too much time to do fortifications. It saves a lot of time based on fighting multiple people. And if you've been paying a lot of attention, you notice that I have a very, very full gold counter. Over the course of playing the game, you get gold for, again, you know, everything in the game is tied in. So you get gold for playing Tales of the Souls, the normal story mode. You get it for playing the various arena versions of the game, the Soul battle system and everything. If you try to do a World Championship match, you'll get gold for that, and you get gold for every Chronicle you do. The more of these objectives at the end of each Chronicle that you hit, the more gold you get.
Battle 1. Fight.
Here's ice. This is the first ice map we have to do, and you can see me sliding around here. Oop. Of course, I've long since unlocked everything. I've bought everything I can.
Battle 2. Fight.
Thank you all for being there. You probably saved me. Yeah, I remembered it was something like that.
I'll take you anytime you want.
I guess that this is supposed to be the end of, is it the end of the 17th century or the 16th? I can't remember, but America has been discovered, so. Luckily, I survived that fight, so I might go a whole extra chronicle without losing a character. Yeah, some walls can be destroyed in this Soulcalibur. There is a little bit of destructible environment. None of those walls are destructible, however. They're too big and thick. So Halphus there, who we just fought with the weird mantis scissors wave swords, is the general over this portion of the, or the commander of this unit that I'm fighting. But he apparently retreated, claiming he's not going to die here. Something. However, whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself. All of a sudden, Halphus is apparently killed, the dialogue implies, by this woman called Mooncalf.
Decisive battle.
At least 100 years after Columbus sailed. I know that. It's at least the 1590s, and it might be the 1690s. I can never remember which century it is. If it's 400 or 500 years ago, or 300 or 400.
Battle
But
1. Fight.
If you're paying attention, you may notice that Mooncalf's weapon style is similar to another named character we've been fighting a couple times already. And the name might be kind of similar. Fourth wall, as far as I know, the characters don't break in this game, sadly. But all of a sudden, Chronicle 8 tells us that Haltis is being overrun by one of its own provinces, apparently. It's never explained in super great detail. Sub-Hour Chronicle 7 is always good. But now this new force, Mileta, is taking on the Haltis, and we, being a super nice guy, decide that we are going to save the Haltis soldiers. Even though we were just fighting them, they declared war on us, we could probably walk away and let Haltis get wiped out, but that just isn't possible for us. We're too bleeding heart. We, you know, moral obligations that we are not actually bound to. It's wonderful. So now we have to fight against these Mileta guys, or Melita, however you prefer to pronounce it. Know that the Soulcalibur characters, for the most part, except for one chronicle that I'll go into when we get there, the Soulcalibur characters don't seem to interact with anything at all except for when you fight them. And they imply that they're each looking for Soulcalibur or Soul Edge. They generally use dialogue associated you know, from their matches, their victories or beginning battles and stuff. But they, and some of them are related to the swords in some way. Like Zaso warns you not to search for that sword if you want to live, the same as he warns a lot of people in the Clock Tower of the story mode. But otherwise, they don't really seem to be a part of it. They're just kind of Easter egg characters. And I think it's a good Easter egg. Whether or not they are, you know, actually realistically here for a reason. I mean, Soulcalibur 4 had Star Wars characters in it, for goodness sake. Soulcalibur has never really been a game that cared much about people's reasons for being anywhere. Also, the speed at which characters from like the Far East travel around the world through Europe and everything is pretty extreme. You know, that's part of the disjointment from reality, I suppose. So this map is an interesting one. It's actually where I first discovered bandits were good back when I was playing casually. Because as I mentioned, we've decided to save the Haltese soldiers. And yes, they come for the food.
Cannot be defeated so easily.
They've decided to so there are these it's pretty neat that each of the different factions has their own, color associated with them. And teal is the Haltese color, and there are a couple of Haltese soldiers on this map. And so our objective is to save these Haltese soldiers, or at least to prevent them from dying. One of the special loss conditions on this map is if 3 of the Haltese soldiers are killed. However, we don't really care if they're killed in the speedrun, or if any of them are killed in the speedrun. But when I was first playing the game casually, I wanted to save all the soldiers, and I tried very hard to do so. I spread my characters around the map, trying to get to as many as possible, and I could never save all of them. I was stuck on infantry for a while because they're just so generic. I thought I might as well be infantry. But then after having so much frustration with this map and trying to save all the Haltese soldiers, I finally decided to try something new, and I looked over the stats that the characters were supposed to have and said, well, bandits are supposed to be faster at moving and taking strongholds, right? So maybe they'll be fast enough. And lo and behold, as soon as I had bandits, it was pretty easy to, using the routes that I'd planned out, to save all the Haltese soldiers in time. And I'd stayed with bandits the entire way after that, just because they're so much faster. And so when I started the speedrun, obviously I knew the bandits would be the way to go, and they have been for the most part. Though I'm kind of like the fact that there are a couple places in the speedrun where I do switch out unit types for particular reasons.
Cannot be defeated so easily.
But when I started speedrunning, at first I was doing more or less the same thing because I was afraid in the speedrun of the enemies taking out the Haltese soldiers and then losing the stronghold, losing the Chronicle, because of that happening while I was busy trying to take the main stronghold. However, after doing a couple things, I realized, no, a lot of these are pretty safe. I can probably speedrun my way through anyway. When I tried doing that, all of a sudden I found I was actually fighting more enemies than before, because I was fighting them, because they actually don't move to attack the Haltese soldiers. They move to attack your characters. So I've been trying out in my more recent runs a couple of different things I can do with, like, starting my main character way over there, trying to manipulate several of these enemies to move into the units that they're fighting instead of into me. So a couple other things to note on this map before we go. Setsuka's the Soulcalibur character here. She's up there. She is new to Soulcalibur 3, and like the simplest background of any of the Soulcalibur characters, really, kind of like what she's doing here, really. She's after Mitsurugi because Mitsurugi killed her master, the man who raised her, in a duel. Since that's Mitsurugi's shtick, is going around fighting sword masters to prove he's the strongest, and so she's out for revenge against him. Doesn't care anything about the swords, except she knows that Mitsurugi's looking for them, so... She's also supposed to be a foreigner to Japan, a gaijin, but she looks way too Japanese in her base set, so her alternate costume I like because with her blonde hair, she actually does look like she's not a Japanese character. She's a ninja, which kind of makes sense, based on she's actually a more realistic ninja than the black-clad ones that we always see in cinematography, because they're supposed to be spies you can't easily recognize. It doesn't really fit her character style at all, but there aren't too many ninjas besides Taki. Ninjas are one of the more powerful of the starting 6, but still they're only one of the starting 6, so they're not that strong. So she's normally not very hard at all. She has glue as her effect. You might have noticed me getting pulled towards her. A lot of the fast characters have that mission in their strongholds, but we don't even care about it. The other thing to note about this Chronicle is that of the Halti soldiers, 3 of them are named and may join your party, and 2 of them are just generic, so it doesn't matter. There are a lot of orphans in this game. A couple of the generic character, or the pre-made characters in your army are also orphans, and go into that a little bit. And, yeah. But, you know, that's actually drama in general. A lot of interesting things happen to characters who are orphans or missing their things. A coworker at work the other day asked the question, name a Disney movie where the main character's parents, both of them, survive from the beginning of the movie all the way to the end. And it's pretty hard to find some. You know, that's because orphans have a lot more baggage and stuff that makes them interesting. People with happy home lives tend not to want to go out and go on adventures. I've thought about Sleeping Beauty, but I don't. Have you? Do you ever remember seeing her mother? It's an interesting game, but that's not the one we're playing. So, 2 of the characters, Laraje, who I saved, and Canon, who I'm letting die here, would join your party if you were to save them. Alien, who is way over here. Boom, Alien. She will join your party regardless of whether you let her live or die or rescue her or not, because she's the leader of this group, and so she has dialogue with you after the battle's over. She's like, what the heck are you guys doing? I don't remember seeing her mother in Sleeping Beauty, but it's been forever since I've seen it. Oh well. Oh, Canon goes defeated. Too bad. 2 more characters die, I lose the battle. Oh, too bad I've almost taken the stronghold already. First battle against Hyle, the general of Moletta. We have to fight him 3 battles in a row, and he's very annoying, especially in his 2nd and 3rd battles. Pardon me.
Battle 1.
Pause that.
Fight.
Please forgive my voice and other illuminations. Yes. There are a couple of moments in the game where collecting or fighting characters and defeating them will cause them to join you, but there are a couple who will always join you no matter what, even if they're on the map and you don't fulfill the condition that would be for anyone else. Yeah. Like right here, we're going to see it. I'm going to speed through it really fast, but Gerardo and Alien are talking. See, there she is. Wa-da-da. And now Reese is talking about being an orphan. Hello, Emily. And because of that, even if she is defeated, she'll join us afterwards, because the programmers never expected that you would let her in particular die, I guess. I don't know why. So first time in a while we don't have a Soulcalibur character. Also the very first time we get to use all 5 characters. Huzzah. So now it's Dancer, Swordmaster, 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 and Swordmaster. I'm doing pretty well. As I was about to explain before getting distracted. Forgive my voice and coughing and hacking fits I have. I've had a cold all week and have been fighting it. I'm glad I just have a voice at all to talk with for my run. Make a character based on you for one of my runs sometime. I might be able to do that.
Final battle. Fight.
Yeah, I should drink something like that.
Be careful from now on.
Ah, starting to get a bit of a crowd in here talking now. That's nice. For the most part, chat's been pretty quiet during this marathon. Okay. Okay. Oh, glass. I forgot my other character who needs to be doing something too. Oh well. All right, the yellow dudes. Been distracted by other things. So, storyline so far. So we're attacking Mileta now. We're at war with them. And they've suddenly formed an alliance with Dalkia, who we were fighting a few Chronicles ago.
It looks like I got lucky.
Okay. So Dalkia was yellow before, and it's kind of an interesting thing here. This is the only Chronicle where you will fight multi-colored characters of multiple colors, I mean, because of the fact that some of them are from Dalkia and some of them from Mileta. And of course, who would come from Dalkia to fight us except for Luna? Yes, Luna and her Klesser Pemdo have signed up for revenge against us. So we're going to deal with them. And then after that, they will retreat back. It kind of is interesting, though, because we were supposed to leave Abilia in charge of finishing off Dalkia. We'd had them on their last legs, apparently, but now they have enemies they can send to battle against us. And so, what's she doing exactly?
Battle 1. Fight.
I'm gonna have to do a screenshot of this. My favorite color is red.
Fight.
Some of you might have noticed if you're watching my runs, I have a lot of characters who use red as the primary color. Come on. There we go.
Battle 3.
Yeah, seriously. Four people. Now that there are two enemies against us at once, we have to bring 5. Come on.
It's over.
I have, technically I have all 5, no, technically I have all 6. I do have Soul Blade for the PlayStation. I have the HD version of Soulcalibur on Xbox Live on my 360, and I have 2 and 3 for PlayStation 2 and 4 and 5 for Xbox 360. And I have already pre-ordered Soulcalibur 6 for Steam.
Fight.
Soulcalibur was the entire reason I bought a Xbox 360. In fact, this has been one of my favorite games.
Your sight.
Final battle. Fight.
Yeah.
fight was decided by fate.
Ah, cool. Here. Yeah, I in 5. Definitely. My biggest problem with 5 is that it didn't have anything interesting in it. 4 was still kind of tough. 4 had some interesting things. It was kind of cool that you could take. They had a story mode, semi-randomized, that you could take your custom characters through. But it wasn't much of a story mode. There's the Tower of Souls, but I hated the Tower of Souls. It was a pain.
Decisive
5
battle.
didn't have anything though. Yeah, I remember fighting Abyss for the first time, and I remember fighting Night Terror for the first time. That was fun. I should offer that as a donation incentive sometime, is to fight Night
Battle
Terror in the
1.
Soul Arena.
Fight.
To beat him. Yeah, I don't have a PSP, so I've never played Broken Destiny or the other sub-side one. Just
Final
all the main
battle.
title ones.
Fight.
I won't pull back next time.
Yep. I'm just glad that Soulcalibur 6 looks to be bringing back a lot of cool stuff. The special mode, the Libra of Souls, is not Chronicles of the Sword, but it's the next best thing. It's like Weapon Master with custom characters. It seems like a really, really fun game mode, too. Even more RPG-like than this one. I can't wait to start building a speedrun for it after I spend a long time enjoying it. I usually don't stream regular Let's Plays on my Twitch, but I'm probably going to be streaming a lot of Soulcalibur 6 while I'm playing it.
Final battle. Fight.
Did you enjoy my dance?
Yeah, I think I'll do that sometime, Emily. I'm always searching for new characters to make. If somebody wants to request it like that, I've taken a screenshot, so I'll have all of those things you pointed out to remember. And why not? I slightly messed up this. I'm losing a little bit of time, but I'm going to have some fun with it because of that. I'm not going to make it this time for this run. All these characters are pretty much made, and I don't want to spend more time doing it. But I'll do that for my next run that I stream. I have made lots of characters on Soulcalibur 3. I don't keep very many of them because I constantly go through them, but I go back to them.
Battle 1.
I kind of go half and half between making my own unique characters and making them based on like Final Fantasy characters and other stuff.
Battle 2. Fight.
Oh, why am I trying to block? This is all unblockable. So yeah, flame around the weapon means all unblockable. Normally it's not a big problem to me because I just wail on them. Who cares? So Heil 2 is slightly more annoying than Heil 1 because of the all unblockable, but
Battle 3.
he's not too hard for the most part. There are a total of 40 fighting styles in Soulcalibur 3. at least that you can give to your custom characters. There are 23 Soulcalibur characters and 17 ones for the custom weapon. There is also Abyss, who you can play as but can't make a custom character for. And there's Night Terror, who I don't believe you can play at all unless there's some way to do that that even I haven't unlocked in playing this game so much. And then I guess technically there's... Oh darn, he's going the wrong way. There's Olkadan, who uses the 23 Soulcalibur weapons randomly at the beginning of every individual round. He has a different random weapon. So you can build a maximum of 10 characters in a single playthrough of Chronicles of the Sword. You can have 10 other characters permanently made and stored on your data for use in game modes like Versus or
Final battle.
Quick Play or the Soul Arena. And that's pretty much it. You can only bring in 5 at a time in Chronicles of the Sword, so
It looks like I'm
just slows down your leveling to make more than 5 and isn't useful in a speedrun. I kind of thought that. I thought I'd seen people with videos online playing Night Terror, and I kind of wondered if it was a Game Shark thing that allowed you to do that, because I've never seen them. So this Chronicle's kind of annoying because you had to defeat all enemies, so... And by being slow, I really messed up a bit of time there, but... So 10 is... Chronicle 10 is the least favorite of a lot of people, because it's got some of the hardest fights in it, and most annoying fights. It's probably one of my least, top 3 least favorite. Especially on Soulcalibur percent. Let's see if I can make this work again. Cassandra, huh? We'll be seeing Cassandra here in a little bit. Cassandra's a pretty cool character. My favorite's Sung Mina, who happens to be the character we have to fight here. And I hate fighting Sung Mina on Chronicles of the Sword. Not because she's my favorite character, but because she's actually pretty much the most annoying of all the Soulcalibur characters to fight. She's over here. Her mission is ice. I'm gonna try. Hopefully I'll be better. Okay, now, moment of truth. Where are you going to go? Nope. Darn, the opposite happened of what I wanted. So these two characters off to the side. Most of the time, when I used to go normally, I would usually get Anaretta here to go in, and Oryx, the guy on the left, would go south and attack my main, try to take my main stronghold and fail pitifully because he's a cavalry. Recently, I've managed to trick a couple of the enemies into, or trick Anaretta into going south as well to try and help Oryx, and still fail horribly to do anything bad. One other time before, though, this happened, and this is the second time this has happened to me, that they both decided to come and defend this stronghold, so that's going to lose a little bit of time.
A pathetic cur like you dares to take on this country, this king?
Battle 1. Fight.
Demuth here is the king of Meleta. There's a bunch of dialogue that we skipped at the beginning of this chronicle. A familiar face was telling Demuth that his purpose has been served and that the kingdom belonged to him now. So we're going to learn more about that at the end here. But Demuth was taunted, or was manipulated by this guy into declaring war against Haltis, revolting and trying to take it over for himself and usurp his own kingdom. So now we have to fight Demuth
2. Fight.
and his main guard Heil, and he's what makes this fight. So this stronghold has a unique mission that's nowhere else in the game called Offense Down, which they might as well just call Defense Up. And it makes you do a lot less damage. You can see how little damage I'm doing to these characters. It's pretty awful. And it's what makes this battle particularly annoying, especially against Heil,
Battle 3.
who is a major pain. His AI is really good on this mission, and his stats are outrageous. Even though he should be just a gladiator, whose stats are pretty low compared to a knight's, he's going to be harder to kill than Anaretta here. And you can see how much chip damage I'm doing to her. So he's a huge pain, and he's one of the reasons a lot of people hate this Chronicle. With the Dancer, he isn't too bad. When I was first speedrunning this game, I just had 5 Sword Masters total. I knew that the Dancer's spin to win was very, very effective. I had discovered its use casually, but I thought that it would be too weak to rely on in the speedrun, since I wasn't getting enough experience from fighting everybody. But then after a while, I decided to give it a try after doing a few runs, and I wasn't doing that great with it at first. And then I got to the Heil fight and did this, just like that, and was suddenly convinced that, wow,
I'll take you anytime you want.
Okay, this is good after all. And since then, I've pretty much relied on the Dancer for Swordmaster strat. It served me pretty well. Occasionally the Dancer, loses time because of dying in certain places, but I save a lot of time by finishing a lot of these battles quicker. The spin to win is very reliable and just does a lot of damage pretty quickly that even the Swordmaster's Katana shoulder charge into air combos doesn't do. Unfortunately, beating Heil, which is just about final boss worthy on its own in this situation, is only the beginning of the Chronicle, as it were. First, we have to deal with this huge horde that's coming. We also have to deal with Sungmino over here. So, all right. Now, there's peculiar traits about the map and how it operates. Even though units are moving pixel by pixel, they actually exist in squares. And so once they leave one square and start to enter another, they count as occupying that square. And you can see that in when you have units running towards each other on the map, and suddenly one will stop and wait for the other to arrive in his spot first. He has to be situated in, there are 5 locations in each square that units can occupy, and they can only be occupied by units of the same faction, of course. You can't have them occupied by enemies and allies. Enemies cannot occupy each other's squares. So that's why they have to stop and wait for the enemy to show up before they can actually start attacking each other. Because of the fact that there's a maximum of 5, that means that 5 units cannot attack a stronghold all at once from the same direction. I've fought more than 5 characters already once in this stream, and I'll probably do it a couple more times. But this way there are 8 coming, but since they're all coming from the same direction, the other 3 would stop and wait for these 5 to be eliminated or for the tower to be taken before they could advance to attack the stronghold themselves. So even though I'd like to fight all 8 at once, I have to fight them in 2 groups of 3 and 5.
Battle 3. Fight.
I like the fact that some of the stages obviously fall off into water and you hear the splash when you go down, while others, you'll hear a thump a couple seconds after falling. Because
Final battle. Fight.
It does not. You get the same amount of experience for winning, regardless of if it's perfect or if it was just one. The only thing is you get a lot less experience for losing, but you do get some experience. And the big problem is that you get the same amount of experience for a double KO as you do for losing. So the worst thing that can happen is double KO, because the enemy's defeated and you don't get any more experience from them. You only get a tiny amount of the experience you would otherwise get for beating them. And your character's dead and has to respawn, and then you have to, and then you lose out that experience. Ooh, there are several hundred pieces. It's hard to count up all of them. There are, Sungmina.
Decisive battle.
There are like 3 different layers of chest equipment you can put on, at least 20 in those. There are 2 different layers for lower legs, and at least 20 in each of those, more than 20 hats, and that's per gender as well.
Battle 1. Fight.
Oh, thank you, Sungmina. Oh no. Yay, ice.
Fight.
Oh no. Ah.
Battle 2. Fight.
Did I do it?
Knockout.
Well, one loss isn't too bad.
It was a decent match.
Yeah, that is how Sungmina plays, and that's why she's such a big pain. Luckily, I found that spin to win is moderately effective on her. Almost nothing else is. She is extremely good, and it's so hard to control yourself on the ice. That was easy, yeah. That was not an ideal Sungmina fight, but it wasn't too bad. Used to be one of the fights where I didn't want to use my dancer because I figured she just had too much difficulty with it, but I was having so much trouble with my sword masters, I went back to use her again and ended up beating Sungmina just with her without losing her. And I can do that about 50% of the time. I can only beat her once with one single sword master, like 1 in 10 tries. She is such a pain. One of the worst 5 fights in the entire game. She is actually worse than the super boss End in difficulty, just because of the mission. Like, she's a gladiator just like Rock is, so her stats are decent, but her stats, you know, almost don't matter, except that she has a chunk of hit points to get through. What matters is she just has a very good move style for pushing you around on ice so you slide out of the ring. Luckily, she's the only Soulcalibur character who has ice, and there is only, I think, 1 more place of ice in the entire game that I have to worry about.
Final battle.
I haven't thought about much, but they don't use it much later on. Or I managed to avoid it.
It will be a long time before my sword is complete.
There are about, I want to say, 8 to 10 full-size dresses. And then there are 3 different types of separate skirts that you can attach to any upper body part. There's somewhere between 10 and 20, I think, dresses. There's a decent amount, especially if you include like Eastern robes in the dresses, full body kimonos and stuff. They're like 3 different full body kimonos, I believe, 2 or 3. Maybe there's only 2. Might be 3.
Two. Final battle. Fight.
Gearchus is an interesting character. He's semi-important. He's basically the general for the usurper king who caused all this mess. We'll fight him one other time. He apparently came from Dalkia or something, because he'll fight us at the end of Dalkia. Unfortunately, I can't during this stream. This is, since I'm speedrunning for the marathon, I'm on a tight schedule. Sometime, if I start a streaming around, I haven't started a speedrun yet, I could take an opportunity to do that for you, though. I wouldn't mind doing that, showing that off sometime. Oh no, that's bad. Okay. Alrighty, so now it's time to meet the mastermind of this whole war. I haven't had a whole lot of smoothies, to be honest. Strawberry banana sounds pretty good, though. I think I have had those before.
Decisive battle.
That's like a classic one. That sounds pretty good. Right about now, I'd love to have a strawberry banana smoothie.
All right.
Here he is,
Surprised?
Chester.
Well, it's just as you see. I must protect this country. I had this brilliant plan of pitting Grandal and Dalkia against one another, and then rise to power during the resulting chaos. But because of your unexpected meddling, my plan is in ruins. You will pay dearly for this.
Do you accept checks?
Battle 1. Fight.
So here's Chester, the Mantis King. Who was the bandit who we fought back in Chronicle 3. Tried to create his own kingdom, and he's pretty pathetic. The dagger is not a very good weapon. It's fun to play casually because there's actually a button you can spam throwing bombs at people, and it's actually decent for a good portion of the game. But otherwise, as a fighting style, it's one of the very weakest in the entire game. So Chester also doesn't have really great stats. Okay, on to Chronicle 11. Final battle against Luna. Now, in the last battle, in the last Chronicle, in some of the conversations we had before the battle started, Mooncalf was apparently killed, trying to kill Chester. And there was talk in another Chronicle about how she used to be a member of Haltis royalty, back when the Haltis was a kingdom, before they overthrew their the royalty and formed a republic. And she lost her daughter in that. And so it's heavily suggested from her dying words calling out Luna's name, and also the fact that they use the similar weapon styles, and that Luna means moon, that Mooncalf is actually Luna's mother. So that's it's actually something that comes into play if you bring other characters.
Decisive battle.
If you bring in certain characters, sometimes they'll have dialogue at different parts in the game, and if you bring Gerardo to this Chronicle before you fight Luna, he'll actually have a conversation with her. He'll ask her if she knows a woman by the name of Mooncalf, and Luna's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So apparently Luna was taken from Mooncalf and lost and found by the by the King of Dalkia and raised among them. But Gerardo has taken an interest in Luna because of that, as we'll see down the line. My favorite Soulcalibur game is also Soulcalibur 3, which is why I've spent so many hundreds of hours on it. I liked 4. 4 had some neat things in it. I wasn't too impressed with 5, but 3 is the one that really had the ultimate of everything to me, mostly because of this game mode. This game mode is just so much fun. But so now, first we have to make our way through Luna's Cluster Pemdo before fighting her, and so now we really see their elements in action. One of the interesting things here is that each of these Cluster Pemdo have unique missions that are nowhere else in the game, which are combinations of 2 other missions. Loopy had Cruel Sword, which is a combination of All Unblockable and Blast, which on Unblockable, of course, we know. Blast causes you to get knocked back much farther than normal if you get hit with a knockback attack. Doesn't mean very much. Hildo has Sacred Field, which is a combination of Ice and Cure. So I think this is the last Ice battle in the game. And luckily, Hildo is a weakling, so it's not too much of a problem for the most part. Although I can always slide off the edge and lose half my life and then quickly get killed. Hopefully that doesn't happen this time. Here we go.
Fight.
Ring around the rosy. One of the most common female character names I use is Mikuni, actually. A Japanese name that I'm just very fond of. And the most common 2 names I use for male characters are either Kain or Maxis, based on other characters I've made in other role-playing games and things of that nature. I've made so many characters, I have a lot of different names that I've given to them, though. Next up is Eloa, who has Holy Wings. This is a combination of Whirlwind and Aerial Wind. Aerial Wind is new. It causes you to get knocked high up into the air if you're hit with a knock-up attack, as it were, if you'll pardon the expression. The attack that knocks you in the air causes you to float high in the air for several seconds before coming down. If you have a really good AI, which none of them are, they can jug you with that. But it's very much meaningless here because Eloa uses the kunai weapon style, and they have, you can see the power of this whirlwind, though. It's pushing me away pretty far. She has almost no attacks that knock up. So you almost never see the effects of aerial wind.
I'll take you anytime you want.
I like all the weapon styles. My very, very favorite, probably because she's my favorite character, is barely Sung Mina's. Close behind it, though, is Keelik's style, which is very similar. And my favorite of the 17 styles is actually Chinese Sword, which is kind of unfortunate because I've never been able to find any good moves for Chinese Sword that I can abuse against the AI. So I can't use it in the speedrun because it's just not effective enough. Yeah, oh yeah, Maxi or one of the two-handers, yeah, they would have a lot of fun with aerial wind, but thank goodness they never, yeah, they don't give, I would be more scared of Maxi if he had aerial wind than he has, oh, blast, I forgot, that's bad. Okay, this is going to be interesting. So this is Agi of Earth, the Earth of Foundation, her title is. She has Impregnable, which is a combination of Quake, which we'll actually see for the first time, although it's been around, and Guardian Force, which means she is not affected by anything. And this is a pain. See? She doesn't care. I hit her. It doesn't mean anything. Normally I don't even fight her with my Dancer. I try to back my Dancer up right before the battle starts because my Dancer has almost no chance of killing her. Because of, you can't combo her at all. Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Oh, wow. Oh, I can't believe that. Button mashing for the win. I rarely can beat her with one character, and I've never done it a few times I've tried with the Dancer. Oh, wow. Okay, so Impregnable is a pain. Unfortunately, although we'll never have to deal with Impregnable again, with the Quake edition, we'll have to fight a Guardian Force character 2 more times, and they are really awful fights. So the first one more than the very last one isn't actually quite so bad. But so now we just have Luna left, and Luna's changed her outfit, and she has a new sword. Dancer? Which Dancer style? The Xianghua Dancer? It's a really fun style. It is fun in addition to being very abusive. The one problem I have with Shanghua's dancer style is that I need to abuse it so much during the speed run. It's so much more effective that I don't get to use any of those other cool attacks like the one I was using in that last battle. I'm glad to hear.
So you've come. This time, it will not be like our previous encounters. See if you can defeat this sword.
Battle 1. Fight.
Luna's mission here is Reserve Offense Up, which is a very weird name. Some of them are badly translated. What it means is that her attack power goes up the more her health goes down. So there are certain other places in the game where that appears where it can be kind of deadly. For the most part, Luna's a wimp. Goodbye, Luna. We no longer have to fight her ever again, though we have not seen the last of her. Yes, that's one of the things that we're wondering. Like, holy cow, where did she suddenly get Soulcalibur from? Oops, I'm accidentally saving the game. That's like a 10-second time loss. Oops, I accidentally saved the game again. Oh well, whatever. Move on. But unfortunately, that mystery will never be revealed. But apparently, Soulcalibur and Soul Edge do exist in this world, and that's the subplot behind all the wars and battles that we go through. So we've seen Soulcalibur, and of course, we will eventually see Soul Edge as well. But for now, we're just trying to finish off Dalkia, this is the capital of Dalkia, and the very last nation that we have to put down, and then the only nation left on the continent is going to be the Grandal Empire. So I guess that means we're at the end of the game, right? So we've got quite a force to deal with. It's a weird map because we have two places over here. It's very weird to have two towers beyond the enemy towers like that. So I can't even reinforce my guys on the sides until I take these. The good news is that they are near Soulcalibur characters. There are 20 Chronicles here in Chronicles of the Sword, so we are on number 12 of 20. So no, we're actually not near the end of the game. Something else is obviously going to have to happen. Cassandra is over here in this stronghold. And Raphael is over here in this stronghold. Let's see, can I? Yeah, I can wait for Lilin. And once again, enemies are not quite doing what they did before, but this is not bad. Oh, that's kind of bad.
Battle.
Gonna have to load one extra fight. Still, this isn't too bad.
Battle 1. Fight.
Not quite dead. Well done, Swordmaster. You too, Swordmaster.
Battle 2. Fight.
I like the look of a lot of these custom-made guys, too. They have a pretty interesting variety of... Oh, nice hit.
Fight. Battle 3. Fight. Bring up. Fight.
Goodbye, Kirkus.
Did the pain set in yet?
Even though there are 20 Chronicles, the last ones are so much larger than the initial few that this Chronicle is roughly the halfway point of the game. Well, let's get you some more experience. I don't have a real experience route for this game since levels aren't super duper important. I just try to spread the experience around a little bit because it's more useful to have a bunch of mid-level characters than to have just a few who are super high level. The dancer is always going to have more experience than everyone, but that's always going to be the case.
Ring out. Fight.
Favorite cake, I guess, would have to be
It will be a long time before my
the
sword is
double
complete.
chocolate cake, chocolate with chocolate frosting. I'm a bit of a chocolate fiend. And what's yours then? Almost. Oh, this is starting to get a bit dangerous, actually. I'm going to go ahead and fight them. Red velvet and ice cream from Dairy Queen. Oh, okay. That's a lot of cake. For you, the cake is not a lie, obviously. What? Did I not give an order to him? Okay, got to reorder again. Looks like.
Battle 1. Fight.
My dad really likes German chocolate as well. I could never get into that one myself, though. It's a little sad because whenever we, you know, when it was his birthday, we were celebrating his birthday with cake. You know, we had to get a couple different cakes, one for the main family and one for him. Buttercream cake, huh? That might be interesting. I don't think I've had that before myself.
Battle 3. Fight. Fight.
This is a potentially dangerous fight. I've been killed by these guys before, and then my main stronghold is so weak that they'll finish it off before I respawn, and then I lose the 5 minutes or whatever that I've already spent in this Chronicle. I have to start it all over again.
Did you enjoy my dance?
I think we enjoyed the dance. Luckily, those fights went well, so I'm not in too much danger of losing here. If you ever lose a Chronicle, you keep all the experience you gained in the Chronicle, which means the only way to power level is to keep playing the game over and over and over, or keep losing a Chronicle after beating almost all the enemies. Yeah, you need orders. So, for my sister's birthday present, she asked for a New Game Plus run of the game, which you can do. You can play Chronicles of the Sword over again with the same squad after you've beaten it before, and you can do that endlessly. Just keep gaining experience and leveling up all of your characters. And the only difference in the game is that you skip the tutorial and you keep everything that you've gotten already. So for New Game Plus, I basically built a party of 99 level characters so that I could do a true New Game Plus, and it went about 10 to 50 minutes faster than a normal any percent.
My dance.
But the only way I could get my characters up that high was to literally I just went to Chronicle 20, where the highest experience enemies are, and fought all of them and then lost to the final boss over and over and over again with all my characters until they all reached level 99. That took a couple of hours of grinding. So, similar to certain runs of, challenge runs in like Kingdom Hearts. Unfortunately, there is not multiplayer in Chronicles. However, because of the load times for the single-player battles, if you were playing it with a friend and you each decided to create your own character, you could hand the controller back and forth.
Final battle. Fight.
Here's Cassandra. She's a pain. we both have Cure on, which is kind of nice, so we get life back. Which is kind of annoying because she's actually got pretty good defense because she's a sage. Both she and her sister Sophia are sages. And Sage is a fairly advanced class. They don't have great attack, but their hit points and defense are both quite good. So they sometimes take a bit of work. She's rarely a danger to lose to. She just doesn't do enough damage, especially when I have an additional cure effect. But she can be very stubborn about allowing herself to be hit and pick at me quite a bit. She wasn't too bad there. That was about average. A little bit above average, I should say, because I did get a ring out finally. Ring outs always save time. Now it's one of the wonderful moments of the speedrun where you just have to sit and wait. This is one of the ones that goes a lot faster in any percent when you can ignore the Soulcalibur characters, because I can send everybody in one big group, but dividing out your forces like that really slows things down. Especially when the two enemies are both in such out-of-the-way locations. That's almost half of my force that can't really be going out the main route. Now, most of the time, when enemies, when your characters meet other enemies on the field of battle, you can just you can let them sit and hit each other. However, I don't like to do that because the drawback to bandits, even though they're so fast and so good at taking down strongholds, is that they get destroyed by every other unit type on the battlefield. They will inflict 1 point of damage, and they will take about twice as much damage as you would take if you were an infantry, for instance. So they just get absolutely destroyed. However, there are certain enemies who will not let you fight them in combat, and they will actually start the battle for you. And I'm going to be taking advantage of that here right now that I've defeated this enemy.
It will be a long time before my sword is complete.
It ends up saving a bit of time. Because we have another horseman over here. And then up here we have Rowan, the general of the Dalkian military. Wonderful timing. For the main character, I just used the default Girl 1. It's on default Girl 1 Happy, or Good Light voice. There are 4 different alignments for each voice based on their equipment. It's the interesting thing about equipment in this game. One of the things I didn't like about Soulcalibur 4 was that your stats were actually determined by your equipment. So when you were trying to brave the upper levels of the Tower of Lost Souls, which was so difficult, in order to properly fight it, you had to put on ugly equipment that didn't match, had no union, just to try to get the best stats out of it. In this game, they are not they don't determine stats, but they do determine your character's alignment. So if you put on a bunch of evil armor, you'll have an evil voice. If you put on a bunch of good armor, you'll have a good voice. And there are a couple of different good voices too. There are those that are good and enthusiastic go-getters, which I tend to call hot or warm. And then there are voices that are more reluctant and laid back, who I tend to call cool voices. So. The common voice I use that I think works best for my main dancer is Girl 1 in the good, cool fashion. It tends to work well with the Xianghua taunt as well. I tend to use mostly Girl 1, Girl 2, Boy 1, and Boy 2 of those varieties, and because I'm a super good guy, I almost never use evil voices. I almost always just use good voices.
Decisive battle.
So Rowan started that fight automatically for us, so I didn't even have to do it myself. I just fought the other person and waited until Rowan showed up, and he started the battle for me. It was very
Final
convenient.
battle.
Here's Raphael. Raphael is a knight, which means his stats are among the best in the game. He also is not that hard. I've never had much trouble with Raphael's AI. Although, of course, today of all days, he's deciding to be mean. Voila, there you go. His Phantom of the Opera mask.
I'm sorry, but I must move on.
For the most part, I think I prefer Girl 2 to most of the time as well. But I just like the Girl 1 voice for the dancer. Just with the weapon subset. So Raphael's down. I don't want to do anything with him. He's useless now. He'll never make it through any of these enemy strongholds before we take down the main one. You will. Voila. And now the very anticlimactic final boss of this stage once we finish breaking down her palace walls. Palace doors, rather. Aurelia, the Queen of Dalkia. Now, you might not expect a queen to be, you know, a great fighter or whatever, but she is, you know, a weapon-using ruler of this whole kingdom, and she's the final boss of Dalkia, so you'd expect that she'd put up a bit of a fight, but she is one of the 2 easiest bosses in the entire game. I have never, ever, ever lost to her. Let's see if I can jinx myself into doing it for the first time ever. Oh, also, when we fought Luna, she uttered a particular line as we approached. We're about to hear that line again, and then we'll hear it once more, just 3 more Chronicles down the line. This is everybody's favorite line of dialogue to greet somebody in this land, I guess.
So, you've come. Worthless servant of strife, you shall pay with your blood. For daring to defy me!
Battle.
Sure, whatever
one.
you say, Grandma.
Fight.
So you come. This is absurd.
Be careful from now on.
Okay. Oh, I saved the game again. So, now a year has passed. We are now the general over the whole army. And the former general over the whole army, General Gerardo, our beloved instructor and father figure, has risen up in rebellion against the Empire. That's not good. He's got to have a reason, right? But with Abilia as our second in command, we're sent to subdue the rebel force. And because we are an idiot soldier who will do whatever the country says, we, you know, despite not wanting to fight Gerardo and thinking he must have a reason, we go and start wiping out his rebels. Hooray for old RPG stories that have you do things without any actual moral obligation. Your character makes moral decisions that are totally out of your hands. So, once again, in any percent, or in SC percent, I have to split up because of the Soulcalibur characters present. There are 3 of them on this map. I'm back to using 4 characters again. If you're playing casually, this is a really annoying time because they've taken away all the units you used to have, and they've given you Abilia and then 3 brand new units, one of whom is good, Tina, which is great because Tina is also the name of my sister, so we had a... And the first character we ever made was based on her, so we had 2 Tinas. It was great. And but otherwise, the other 2 are not very good, so if you don't have a couple of good characters you've built up yourself... Yeah, apparently our part of the Empire is to kill rebels. I guess so.
Battle 1. Fight.
Did I do it? Goodbye. Did I do it? You can't get it. Goodbye.
But so when you're playing casually and you're suddenly missing especially your great samurai Mega, it's a big problem on this map. Of course I don't care here, but there are a couple of things. Like I do have a run that I do occasionally where I only make a main character, and in that one this is where the game starts becoming pretty hard, simply because you don't have the characters to supplement your forces. Also, Spoony Bard alert, number 1. What a Spoony Bard.
It will be a long time before my sword is complete.
There are about 30 hairstyles for females. 20 to 30. A couple of short hairs, a couple of medium hairs, a little hair, the mohawk, bald, if you want bald. Only a couple of long hairs. A couple of different ponytail, actually. Fortifying this to protect it because enemies are going to come attacking me soon enough.
Decisive battle.
So now I'm restricted to only 4 characters on this Chronicle after getting 5 for the last 4 or so, which is annoying. And there are 3 enemy Soulcalibur characters I have to beat. Not just 1, not just 2, but 3. It makes sense when you think of which 3 they are. It's Maxi, Xianghua, and Keelik, who of course are known in Soulcalibur lore for being a traveling band together on their quest to defeat Soul Edge and destroy Soul Edge and defeat the Dark Forces and all that. Maxi having his additional thing to his additional mission to avenge his pirate crew and defeat Astaroth, destroy Astaroth, kill Astaroth, however you want to say that, not just defeat. And so Keelik and Xianghua are the first pair we're going to be fighting in the same stronghold. And that makes this relatively more difficult. Which is why, for safety's sake, I have 2 characters down here. I can usually reliably just defeat both of them with the Dancer, but just in case something goes awry, if I have only the 1 character down here, I'm going to lose a lot of time. So as a marathon safety backup strat, I usually bring 2 characters down here. It slightly slows the map down a little, but slightly slows it a little. Yes, lots of adjectives in this word. I can English. But it's definitely safer. Something could go wrong and I could lose my Dancer, but there's no way I'm going to lose my Dancer and a Swordmaster. Now, one of the things I haven't mentioned is that if you do end up losing these battles, it's further problematic because enemies will, a character inside of a stronghold will recover HP. About 2% of their HP rounded off every second. So at 250 hit points, which is base for a lot of characters, you'll get 5 hit points back a second. Once you get up to 300, you'll get 6. Once you get up to 350, you'll get 7. You know, 1/50th. And so if you're fighting a Soulcalibur character inside of a stronghold and can't beat them in the first go-round, by the time you get to attack them again, they'll be back to full health. So you've got to make sure you bring along enough characters to kill them in one go, or you're losing a lot of time and you have to start all over, and it's not going to get any easier. However, when Soulcalibur characters are on the field you do not recover health.
Now, Battle
And
one.
that applies
Fight.
both to enemies and your guys as well, so it's a good strategy playing casually to, for safety's sake, to
Fight.
if your characters get low on health, to rest up inside a stronghold until they're fully recovered. I don't use that very often in the speedrun, of course, because it's slow to recover health. Obviously, it takes a while at only about 2% per second. It's almost a minute to fully heal. So here's Maxi. In his secondary outfit, he has blonde hair, which is pretty cool looking. Kind of sad, though, because he looks so much like Elvis. It's just hilarious. With that pompadour of his. He is not nearly as hard as you might think, considering you can't even block his attacks, and he's level 60. Because he's a monk, so his stats aren't great, and also
Battle 3.
he's Maxi. He can do horrible combos, but he tends to leave himself open too much with all of his posturing and spinning around. The AI is not nearly as good as Maxi human button mashers are. All of you Maxi haters, you've been avenged.
I'll take you anytime you want.
Aw, man, you messed up my hair. Yes, we did, Maxi.
Battle 1. Fight. Now. This is the end. Now. This is the end. Battle 2. Fight. Now.
Alright, sleep well. Thanks for watching.
Battle 3. Fight. Now.
Good juggle swing there. Oh. Chinese sword style, in addition to being one of my favorites to play with just casually, is also one of my least favorite to fight, because the AI is really, really good with Chinese sword. There's definitely a big gap in the difficulty of certain AI weapon styles, and katana and Chinese sword tend to be two of the very, very most difficult to fight for whatever reason. Which the katana one makes sense, because I use that a whole lot myself, but
Decisive battle.
kind of one of the things that frustrates me, that Chinese sword's so good for AI and I can't do anything with it.
Battle 1. Fight.
So here's the mirror match, Xianghua versus Xianghua, but she doesn't know the power of spin to win. And since she's a dancer, her stats are lousy, of course. She is much higher level than me, but I have a better weapon than her. She has just her default weapon. That's one of the saving graces of the Soulcalibur characters, is they also have only default weapons. And Keelik is also a monk who usually isn't too hard, so I could have done that with a single character. But again, safety's sake, I'm went ahead and brought the two. Which means we'll also get to see just how annoying the separate mission is at the very end of this chronicle. When I do my normal strat, the rest of the group will very easily make it to the end before my main character can reach there. And so she doesn't get to fight in the final battle. which is sometimes in some ways convenient because that final fight is much worse for her than it is for the katana wielders, sword masters.
Decisive battle. Battle 1. Fight.
Apparently Bandai Namco doesn't think very much of the Soulcalibur series right now. They had to do a lot of work to get them to greenlight number 6, and if it doesn't sell well, they're probably going to not continue anything in the franchise, which is very sad news, as I would like to see them do, and I would drop a lot of money for, an actual Chronicles of the Sword standalone game. Something with a lot more effort put into just this particular thing. You could still have the Soulcalibur style fighting with a bunch of unique new weapon styles similar to these custom ones for the characters in there, and an upgraded version of this game style with more missions, a little bit, even maybe the ability to customize your own chronicles and scenarios to battle in, because there's a lot of potential in for a strategy game in this, with all the various missions and stuff that you barely scratch the surface of in the course of this game. Okay, so Brunhild here has a Lance and Separate mission. Separate mission is incredibly annoying because it pushes you away. And so many of my moves involve timing of being within a certain range. So my spin to win will only work if she decides to let it work. Because when she stands up, she could stand up forward or to the side or just straight up. And if she does any kind of stand up besides forward, my follow-up spin will fall short of her, and my combo's gone. So, look at how I'm getting pushed away right now. Whee! Yay, she's cooperating. Nope, not anymore. Kind of a weird thing about Soulcalibur 3's AI. It generally is a really good AI. A lot of people have talked about how difficult a lot of the bosses and stuff are. Ah, thanks, Lev. See ya. But the reason that things like my shoulder charge and spin to win strategies work so well is because the AI has holes in its blocking timing for some reason. It might seem like a lot of the time that this attack is just unblockable, but as seen, even though it's guard break, it can be blocked. The enemy just isn't any good at doing it most of the time. They'll never block more than like 3 in a row. Time to see how this strategy works out. So this is one that's kind of interesting on, yeah. Yeah, and I wish it worked in especially Soulcalibur 4 as well, so that I could clear the rest of the Tower of Lost Souls. I don't think I ever made it to the very top of that stupid tower. If I did it once, I never wanted to try doing it again.
Final battle, fight.
But so they're just, and these aren't the only ones. There are a couple of different techniques with a couple of the weapon styles that are essentially unblockable by the AI. They just time it badly, or they'll be able to block one, but they just can't time the secondary hit from a two-step hit. And so you can spam those as well. These just happen to be the most overall fastest and most reliable. But even the staff, a weapon that I normally hate and don't do well with, has a particular, on the 8-way run, you'd say a 3 8-way run B attack holding it goes into a double hit that the AI just can't block. Another one a lot of people tell me on YouTube videos and stuff is like, oh, if you're playing the Iron Sword and you spam AB, the computer can't block that well. It's like, yeah, that's also a good one. I'm well aware of. They tend to block the first hit, but not the second of that sweep. It's not super great, though.
Fight.
Did I do it?
Knockout.
It looks like I'm just too strong for you.
For some reason, I don't remember using Killick enough on Soulcalibur 4. I ought to go back and try it again, because Killick is one of my favorite characters. As you can tell from my Discord avatar. My Discord picture is old Soulcalibur 2 Killick. But this is one of the weird maps that I'm tweaking around a bit, still trying to find optimal cases for. Of course, I want to minimize the number of fights I get into, but unlike in other places, I can't let them group up because that means I'll have to fight more people down the line. So there are a couple of different things I try. I really like the strategy I have for any percent because it's actually really exciting because I just bull rush through the top portion of the map with my entire group of 4, and the enemies all converge on my main stronghold, and it looks like they're about to take mine, but there's really no danger of it happening. But this one I have to spread out to fight Mitsurugi and Taki. Mitsurugi and Taki, the interesting thing about this is the one point of the game where the Soulcalibur characters interact with the other characters in the Chronicles of the Sword universe. It dashed over to the enemy's main stronghold there because their leader was telling Mitsurugi, you can handle this one. It's implying that Mitsurugi has somehow arrived here and has been hired as a mercenary by these rebels who are attacking us in the middle of the night. In addition, Taki has a conversation with Abilia in which she insists that Abilia is possessed by the evil sword. So, okay, whatever you say. So it's kind of interesting. It's just the one chronicle in the game where other people have conversations when you're fighting the Soulcalibur characters. And as you can see, Mitsurugi is very strong. He's a samurai. Mitsurugi is strong in general. He's always been one of the most solid Soulcalibur characters. He's a fun style to play as well. If I had anything I could use to abuse with him, he'd be a style I'd use a lot more, because he's just strong in general, but not super abusive. And samurai have outrageously good attack power. They have the best attack power in the game, except for when a Swordmaster gets 99, they'll jump ahead of them. But otherwise, they have even more attack power than a Swordmaster. So they're a very, very, very good class on their own. So not a huge surprise that I died there. A bit unfortunate, but nothing super bad. Usually, on average, a death in a loss of any character, any defeat costs me roughly a minute, depending. The closer it is to the end of the Chronicle, of course, the less time it costs me. But every second that my characters are out of action, those same characters are not
Battle 1. Fight.
helping to defeat the other strongholds I need to destroy. Wow, this nameless rebel is really determined to be a hero.
Final battle. Fight.
Wow, all of them. I ducked. That was funny. Yeah, like I said earlier, there's always about a half dozen enemies that normally are pretty easy that just decide to be difficult every run, and they're always different. These two generic nobody soldiers decided they were going to be heroes. This is actually just about the easiest Chronicle in the game. Apart from Taki and Mitsurugi, all the characters are low level and weak. They're weaker than the ones we just fought in the last Chronicle, and there's actually kind of a sort of story reason for that. We had conversations at the very beginning of the Chronicle between Chester and Strife. Strife being the Emperor of Grandal, and Chester, who we just defeated in Chronicle 12. Yeah, apparently he's still alive, and he's working for the Emperor, and certain things seem to conclude basically from stuff we'll learn later on that these rebels are not all they appear to be. Come on. Directing these routes are not always reliable and easy to go through with, I think that's too many. I don't think I'm going to make it. Unless, oh, they're going that way. That's right. I'm good, actually. I'll be safe. Except for the death to Mitsurugi, this is working out pretty well. So yeah, there's Taki talking to Abilia.
Decisive battle. Two heroes. Battle 1.
Taki has glue, so I keep getting sucked into her. This is actually very dangerous. I'm a lot lower health. There's a unique loss condition on this map. I lose if my main character dies, so that was actually kind of dangerous. Usually Taki isn't much of a problem. She's just a ninja, which aren't too hard most of the time, but can be troublesome. Decent enough attack power, so she can kill me if she gets enough good hits, and she is fast enough, very much fast enough, to interrupt my spin to win if she so feels inclined. Sometimes I feel in enough danger by being defeated by her that I will pull my main character back right before the battle starts, but I haven't been doing that at all this time around. Okay, Ignis.
Decisive battle.
Like Aurelia, he's a super duper wimpy boss. He has a blast effect, but he's hardly going to hit me, let alone do knockback on me.
Battle. One.
Interestingly, the sparkle effects are on me for blast, and not on him. Okay, now comes my second least favorite Chronicle, Chronicle 15, where we have to fight General Gerardo. Our beloved instructor, leader, father figure, former commander. We're going up against him, and Abilia is like, death to all enemies of the Empire, whoever they are, even if they're my friends and family. Okay, lots of interesting things in this Chronicle. Lots of enemies to face. I'll end up fighting all but 2 on this route. Just too close to bother trying to issue any other orders before the battle. We have 2 more Soulcalibur characters. They are luckily outside of combat, or outside of strongholds, so even if I lose to them,
Fight.
I'll be able to recover and go beat them without too much trouble.
Be careful from now on.
Voldo, Yoshimitsu, Quake,
Decisive battle.
I think this is the last time I have to worry about Quake, and luckily the enemy is dead so fast, I don't worry. One of the other interesting things about this Chronicle is this is another place where we will recruit one of 2 characters based on who we defeat first. However, unlike back in Chronicle 2, you have to defeat one of them at least, and usually both. I have tried several different strategies and routes to go around both of them, but I can't take the enemy stronghold before they take mine if I don't get in the way of at least one of them. And on this particular route, on any percent, I can usually avoid fighting one, maybe. But on SC percent especially, I have to pretty much have to fight both of them. So whichever one you defeat first will be the one who will join you at the beginning of the next Chronicle for reasons. Here's Voldo. Of course, Voldo has nothing to say. Silent, creepy man Voldo. Voldo can be a pain at times. Luckily, he's only a dancer, so his stats are pathetic. Also, his secondary costume is really great. Check this out.
Final battle.
Sun and Moon Face. What a two-faced guy. I've never seen a guy so two-faced he never talked. If you didn't already have Xianghua available to you, I'd say that a dancer wouldn't be bad with Soul of Voldo simply because his attack strings are so fast that he's very, very good. You can just spam AA and BB strings to overwhelm most of your enemies, especially if he has a chip damage weapon. Something that causes chip damage even when blocking. Haha, yep. But again, you know, since if you're a dancer, you're pretty much, you should be relying on Xianghua anyway, so. But if you don't mind Voldo, he isn't
Battle 1.
bad.
Fight.
Both in his character and in his style, he's one of my least favorites, but I enjoy using pretty much all the styles, even the ones that are super hard. Worst class in the game, really, for me, is, besides Thief, probably Saint,
Battle 2. Fight.
because their stats are pretty awful too. They have better defense and hit points than Dancers and Thieves, but their attack power is actually the lowest in the game, and, you know, really, realistically, attack power is your, attack is your most important stat.
Battle 3.
The two Saint weapon styles are Zasamel and Tali. And Feofan here is the first guy who we can recruit, so he's going to be joining our party since we defeated him first. And of course, like every other character we recruit, we will put him to 0 use over the course of speedrun. But Talim and Zasamel are both really fun styles. I really like both of them. And Talim is one of my favorite characters. But I have never been able to do anything good with their weapons. I don't know if it's just their low stats, but they don't have anything really abusable. And their stats are low enough that even just mashing doesn't work very well. So my Saints tend to have really awful stat lines of 51 wins, 49 losses by the end of the game. So. And this particular Chronicle as well, part of the problem is that they gave you a level 4 ultimate stronghold, while the enemy has a level 5, and that's one of the main reasons why you have to run back and defeat these guys, or else you'll lose it. Even to 2 cavalry, I will lose my stronghold first if we get into a base race, because they're already attacking it, and it's just that weak compared to the enemy's main stronghold.
Battle 1. Fight.
One of the interesting things is the rapier, which also has a largely silent character. Whoever uses a rapier says almost nothing, because the rapier is the default weapon for the Amy special character. Amy didn't become a true member of the cast until Soulcalibur 4, but they did have a special character, as they called them, a bonus character for all of the 17 bonus weapon styles that you could use in quick play or in the Soul Arena functions, and Amy is the representative of the base rapier weapon style. And they ended up keeping a lot of the different moves that were different from Raphael's when they made her normal in Soulcalibur 4. And so just because of that, pretty much all characters who use rapier have almost no dialogue for, or at least to the NPCs. I think if you have PCs, they do. I can't remember because it's been a while since I've used them. But for NPCs, they say nothing. Just like Amy, they preen and do a little bit of flourishing and such things.
Battle 1.
Rudiger here is the other character who would join you if you defeated him first. If I had to choose between the two, lances are a lot more useful than sword and shield, so I would, if I continue, when I go back to doing MCO type runs, I'd probably try to, well, actually, it wouldn't be too hard to do. Slightly time loss, but I'd likely manipulate it so that I fought Rudiger first. I would recruit him instead of Feofan. I don't want you to do it. Or you, actually. I really want to do it. Bit of safety here, just in case I end up losing to Yoshimitsu, because that's a real possibility. Yoshimitsu, of course, being the other character using a katana, is also a samurai. Makes enough sense. You could argue, since based on his storyline, he's actually supposed to be the leader of a ninja clan, that he should be a ninja, and you could make Setsuka a samurai. But, you know, whatever. It's the least of their problems with classes as far as I'm concerned. This is the other reason. So as a samurai, his stats are really good. He can do a lot of damage. But the other reason he's dangerous is because of this terrain. I have several times been knocked out by him. Also, I didn't point it out, but his squid face is also another hilarious secondary outfit. I'm not really good at making hilarious outfits myself. Like, I doubt I'm going to make any in Soulcalibur 6, but I do enjoy seeing other people doing them for certain characters. Okay, last fight is going to be General Gerardo himself. This is our first instance of Guardian Force. Technically second, but it's the first time we'll see the Guardian Force mission on its own. So once again, just like with AG, Guardian Force means that Gerardo doesn't care about anything. Gerardo don't care. Mega Pope. I can just imagine how that is. I can see the things required in my mind. That's pretty good. Mega Pope. Next time you'll have to donate to name a character Mega Pope and let me try my hand at it. But so yeah, dealing with Gerardo is not fun because unlike the other two characters who have the Guardian Force effect, he has outrageously good stats. His stats are among the very best in the game, making this really probably top 2 hardest fight. After Emperor Strife himself, the final boss, this is the hardest fight in the game. Yeah. I know the feeling. I was been running through that myself a lot this year, which is why I didn't really make it to RPG Limit Break this time. Better situation now, though, so I'll be back next year. Hopefully, I'll be running this at RPG Limit Break next year. We will see. This is the 3rd marathon this year that I've run Chronicles of the Sword, and I have at least one more I'm going to be running it in as well now. Just confirmed today. Oh, this is going so well. It was going super duper well, but still, this isn't bad. Losing one character is very good. Losing no characters is a dream I've never imagined doing with Gerardo. I had a hope there for a second. Still doesn't happen. But losing, I should only lose one character, and one character is not bad at all.
Battle 2, fight.
Did I do it?
One of the good news is that Gerardo's weapon actually causes him to lose life every time he attacks, and when he does one of his spinning lance attacks, that drains a lot of his health. That's it. Okay, Gerardo done. That was a really good Gerardo fight.
You are strong.
Longest
But
cutscene
you
in the
do not
game.
yet know
Oh
where
yeah, and Gerardo also
to
said,
direct
"So
that
you've
power.
come," when we arrived. Universal
now,
greeting.
Your strength is controlled by others. Think for a moment. For whom do you wield your power? For what purpose? And against whom? You must learn to control that strength yourself. Otherwise, you will never become a true warrior.
Holy cow, what the heck? It's Soul Edge. Emperor Strife. He has Soul Edge? You might not even know that's Emperor Strife if you haven't played this game already. Just a strange man who they've never shown before stabs and kills Gerardo with Soul Edge in a very weird way, and Gerardo with his delayed sound. It's like, so yeah, Soul Edge is here too. Emperor Strife has it. So now, Abilia says, we've taken care of the rebels, time to leave, and she's gone. The rest of us decide, you know what? We're really sorry about General Gerardo dying now. And so, all these rebels, we just, spent the last 3 Chronicles beating the crap out of, kicking up and down the countryside. We're going to join them. In fact, we're going to take over their leadership and lead the rebellion against the Empire ourselves. Because why not? And so, the whichever of the 2 leaders you defeated first, Feofan or Rudiger, talks to your characters here, and he doesn't trust you at all. He can't believe that now you're rising up in rebellion, but, he doesn't have an army left, so all he can do is follow you and hope that you'll make good on your promise to do the rebellion after killing all of his friends. Yes, excellent. Once again, moral obligation without, moral decisions without any actual obligation on our own. One interesting thing about the Gerardo fight is that it's the only fight in the game where it does not follow a normal order for your characters fighting it. In any other fight, if you start the fight, whoever you start the fight with will be the first character to show up, and then it doesn't go through them in order. It tends to go through in reverse order. It seems to go to the weakest, pick your weakest character and have them fight next, and then after that. But otherwise, every battle starts with your main character if you didn't start it. Except for the one with Gerardo. Your main character is always last. Theoretically, it might just be level-based because your main character is almost always going to have the most experience because they always fight first. But if you were to somehow manipulate it so your main character is not the highest level, there's a possibility it might be something else. But that would be a lot of work to do. And even with all the times I've played this game, I've never done anything of the sort. So this Chronicle 16 is my least favorite, especially on SC %, because I only get 3 characters, you may have noticed. It's a very big Chronicle, and for the first time since Chronicle 4, we have only 3 characters. That makes this very, very slow. For the most part, I don't mind too much the little downtimes where you're doing nothing. It's one of the things that makes the run a little bit on the boring side. I can understand, people don't like to sit and watch the guys whacking at towers for 4 hours. But this Chronicle is where it gets really bad because of the amount of hit points that strongholds have just grows over time. It's kind of something I never talk about, but I just take for granted. Your level 1 strongholds start out with 100 hit points back in the first few Chronicles. Now they have like 300. And you don't do any more damage. You never do any more damage, 300 exactly. You always do the same amount of damage to strongholds, regardless of your level, regardless of anything. The only thing that changes the damage you do is your unit type. So bandits were doing 5 back at level 1, so it took them 20 hits to destroy a level 1 stronghold. Now it takes 60 hits, because they have 300 hit points, and 80 to defeat a level 2. In addition to that, there are 3 Soulcalibur characters again. So there are as many Soulcalibur characters on this map as I have characters. It is so annoying. Especially since 2 of them are together, and another one will one-shot your characters, literally. That's the point of the mission he's in. We'll be seeing that in a minute here. Down, lose. Zosalamel is over in down, lose. And as weird as that sounds, it is exactly correct. If you fall down, you lose. It's one of the more amusing missions. It's the only time you'll see it in the game as well. probably luckily, because it's amusing, but it's also very annoying if you if things don't go right for you. Zaso Amel, like most of the Soulcalibur characters, has his AI programmed to take advantage of the mission he's in. So he will use a lot of attacks that come out quickly and will automatically knock you down or push you back. And once that happens, as soon as you hit the ground, well, you'll see. You'll see. It's quite a treat. After practicing it many, many, many times, I've come to the conclusion that I win about 50% of the time with my Dancer and 90% of the time with my Swordmaster. So you can guess who I'm going to be attacking that stronghold with. Now this is where generic enemies tend to get really, really, really strong and get really good AI and tend to punish me a whole lot. This is where the run would be almost impossible if I had nothing but Dancers. Although I likely couldn't make it past that. Guardian Force is another reason to have nothing but Dancers, because if you had nothing but Dancers against like General Gerardo, it would take forever to chew through his hit points. It would probably be close to impossible. But kind of interesting jump. There's a huge level jump for these high-level guys. Their AI is much better. It's obvious Grandal's elite have been prepared to stop us. And it's kind of an interesting division they don't really talk about, but which is kind of evident in the game. Because we were just fighting guys who were like level 40 for the most part. Even General Gerardo, I think, is like only level 43 or 45 or something. And now all of a sudden, half the guys on this mission, the ones who aren't generic, are all level 49, 48, 50.
Battle 1. Fight.
You know, much, much higher level than anybody we've fought so far. And of course, they all have, you know, the nice Grandal red, all in unique clothing, but
Battle 2.
Obviously, red is their primary color. Just like this. Yikes. That was incredibly bad.
Battle 3. Fight.
Nice.
Ring out.
It's over.
Only saved a few hit points, but...
This time, I am the victor.
Okay, so... I often die twice on this mission. If I could ever manage to make it through this mission without losing my Dancer, I would almost certainly get a PB, but every time, just have such a rough time with it. Oh well. In some ways it's better that she died already, so she'll recover at full strength. So we'll go ahead and fortify this up so she'll recover here. It's not like I have anything else to spend money on anyway. Roughly an hour left. Once we're through with this Chronicle, we're entering the home stretch, as it were. One of the weird quirks of the game is how it leaps to places like where battles are, or when a character recovers like that, or if a stronghold falls. It tends to, you would think, a natural inclination would be to think that the closer you are to it, the less time it spends jumping there, so you could save time by being close to the next warning site if you know where it is. But that doesn't actually seem to be the case. I haven't been able to like time it by frames or whatever, but the game noticeably goes a lot faster if you're farther away and a lot more slowly if you're close. So that I think it takes the same amount of time regardless. Oh, thank you for cooperating.
Fight.
One down.
You're
Final battle, fight.
Wow, she's really determined to block. Oh, that's great. I've never seen that many blocks before.
Fight.
Okay, those fights went really, really well. And Soulcalibur recovers my health over time, so... I lost a bit of health while waiting for both of them to arrive to start the single combat, but she was spent so much time blocking that I was able to get all that life back. Being full health going into that fight will be nice. So, next, Soulcalibur with his down lose.
Decisive battle.
Yeah, the poor horses. They don't even get to
Battle
participate
one.
in the fight.
Fight.
Boom! One shot. That's down lose. It's quite hilarious.
It'll be a long time before my sword
Pretty much
is
anything I try to do with my dancer, he will intercept it, but he does not know how to handle the shoulder charge. It just freaks him out, and then he gets hit by it anyway. He falls on his butt and gets shot into the air. Very well, I'll just come back again. You do that, Soulcalibur. Next time I start submitting this for Marathon, I'm going to have a donation incentive for weapons to use. I'm going to start practicing on actually doing hard challenge modes where I don't just abuse these two weapon styles. Like, the top 5 weapons chosen will be the styles I use. Nobody picks anything, I'll go the easy route. But so now we have Yoon Sung and Talim, who of course also travel together, so it makes sense that they're together. I don't know why Soulcalibur is with them, but they don't all make sense. So they're both weak classes. Yoon Sung is a thief and Talim is a saint. However, they have a really powerful whirlwind. Despite being only level 2, the whirlwind mission here is the strongest in the entire game, I think. And it is a major pain, and once again, these two both have AIs that are designed to use their leaping knockback attacks, which combined with the whirlwind will throw me out of the ring really easy. So this is a very, very high variance battle.
Fight.
If it goes like this continually, it's going to be a rough fight. If they give me a moment's rest. No.
Ring out. Fight.
If I get one of that again, I'm going to lose some more time by losing a character again. I'm almost certain to lose her again now with the other difficult fights coming. Just like on the separate now, with this powerful of a whirlwind, I can only continue my combo if she decides to be stupid and get up just in time to be hit. Yep. Almost better this way. At least I'll be fully recovered rather than, and be able to recover now at full strength rather than losing her again at other annoying parts.
Battle 3. Fight.
Overall, though, I'm grateful for that. The fact that you only lose half your life when you fall out of the ring instead of dying automatically, because the number of times I fall out but still have health to recover is a lot more than the enemy falling out and still having health to recover, even though I do a lot more ring outs. I usually do enough damage that they're below half when I do, and when they come back with only a couple, it's usually not too bad. Is it worth it? I don't know. Nah. I'll just go the slight extra distance. It's not that big a deal. Actually, neither is building it up. I'm gonna go ahead and fortify. Why not? What else do I have money to spend on? When mashing through text and stuff, both the X button and the circle button will advance text. And as the text box is drawing out, pressing one will instantly fill it, and then pressing it again will skip to the next box. And so, speedrunners, I've watched Final Fantasy IX speedrunners, and they talk about doing something similar to instantly skip through text in that game. That one button press fills the box, another button press advances the box. So it's kind of similar to that. I double mashed in order to super speed through text in this game. It's one of the interesting points about it.
Decisive
Is that one of the nice things about speedrunning it is that names make no, unlike a lot of speedruns, the names of your characters make essentially no difference to how fast the run goes. Because with text drawing out instantly, it doesn't matter if they're 8 characters or 10 characters or whatever.
Battle 1. Fight.
Very inappropriate music for a mid-battle fight. This is one of the final stages, and so all the music is associated with the stages. Music's great, too, by the way. I love the Soulcalibur music. All of this is so good. But that one comes through very strongly on that stage, and it isn't actually at a final battle fight. I really want an HD version of this game that allows me to turn off, among other things, death animations. Boy, that would save a lot of time. $10 for my choice for a donation incentive. Okay, I'll have to look at those once my run is done. If I get another $10, I'd put it towards end. Will do.
Battle.
Here's another super powerful separate, which is super annoying. Oh, thank you for... Oh, but not that time. Yeah. She's getting up to the side and not cooperating this time. The worst part, too, is that she has a weapon that restores her health, so all the time that it makes it that much harder to kill her. That was pretty good, though. That wasn't too bad.
I won't hold back next time.
Thanks a lot. I tend to, my speedrunning forebears are people who tend to offer a lot of casual chat during their runs. I started watching RPG Runner Poexel for the most part, and so I grew to that habit as well. I know there's a lot of stuff in this game, and so I like talking about it and describing it, so I'm rather used to it. It's a good thing, too, since there are no other runners of this game, so nobody who can really offer commentary for it besides me. Kind of gets tough sometimes to talk for 4 or 5 hours straight, but 5 or 6 when I'm doing 100%, which I haven't done in a while. That was something. interestingly, the last character we just fought is Konomi, and the boss here is Kagami, and they both use the Katana Shuriken style, which makes you wonder if the creators created them with the intent of having them be a father-daughter or something. All guard break? This actually, yeah, isn't bad at all. All guard break. It's a very anticlimactic fight. After all the characters were so difficult up to here, and after having the penultimate battle of this being that separate, the final boss has all guard break, which I don't care about. It's nothing. I'm like, whatever. This guy's killed me a couple times. He's not super duper easy, but he's not very hard. He has to really be on something to actually get me.
Fight.
One of the interesting things about All Guard Break is that it's the only source I've seen of a semi-useful glitch in the game. If you're fighting against somebody who has an All Guard Break mission and you're using a weapon that can cause guard
It
breaks...
looks like I'm just too strong for you.
yeah, not... luckily not. Nope. Nothing like that. Just guard break. But if you use like a lance or a katana shuriken of your own that has a guard break property in it, that means that it occasionally will cause a block to induce a guard break stun as if you'd used a guard break attack. And if you hit an enemy while they're in a guard break stun situation with a weapon like that, it will actually do half their health. It's incredible. I've never been able to do it on stream before, but I've done it multiple times playing casually. If I could ever do it consistently, I'd use that as a donation sim to show off. It's just so interesting. So our soldiers realized that the defense that the Empire had prepared is just way too good. And the soldiers the rebels who were trying to fight us back in Chronicle 14, they realized weren't actually rebels. They were minions sent by the Emperor who knew we were going to turn on him, and so he was trying to eliminate us before we inconvenienced him, kind of thing. He'd been paranoid and known all along that we would turn against him as well. So now we enter this Chronicle, and it's the one Chronicle in the game where SC% is... No, that isn't true. Any of the Chronicles without Soulcalibur characters are the same as in any percent. But this one has Soulcalibur characters, but it's also the same as any percent. I actually go along this route through the Soulcalibur characters because it's the fastest route to the enemy. But the interesting quirk here is that, except for the generics, most of the enemies here are the former soldiers we used to have in our army back when, in the first 12 Chronicles, the ones we collected. Aeneas and Reese and Mega and Eurydice. Even the two soldiers we recruited from Haltes that we didn't rescue, Larage and Canon. And if you defeat them, they will rejoin your party after the battle is over. Ah bon? Wow.
Battle
So,
one.
Sphitia, that's interesting.
Excuse me.
So here we have to fight, oh, that's not what I wanted to do. Did that too quickly again. Sophitia's being really mean today. Usually I can beat her without problems, but she can be tough. She's a sage, and she's a lot better than Cassandra is. That doesn't happen too often. So, well, actually, the reason that they're fighting against us is because they've been given shards of Soul Edge, which have turned them into zombies, and they're obeying the leader of this group here. No, they aren't just doing it on their own. And in order to free them from their zombiehood, we have to defeat them. So any of the ones we don't defeat don't get turned back. I actually did not know that until... I played my MCO run of the game. Because there are a couple... Mega here, who uses a katana, he's the one person you really want to use in the MCO speedrun, because he's the only character who uses the super powerful katana style. So he's the only one I really care about much, but there are a couple of others who were sort of useful in the MCO run. But I found out that I didn't get them back after when I was trying to add them to the party, and I realized, oh, it must be because I didn't defeat them. Darn.
It will be a long
So-
time before my sword is complete.
Well, thank you guys for the support. I'm glad that it's appreciated. So we'll get Mega back. And once again, even if you don't defeat him, Aeneas rejoins your party as well, because Aeneas is your first party member, and he's the guy who talks after, and he's like, "Oh, sorry, Chief, don't know what happened to us. Looks like you're in trouble, huh? Guess you need us to bail you out." Good old Aeneas. So that was Sophia. Oh, can I do it? Good, I can. Just enough. I need my main character to revive here. It's always a big time loss to lose anybody on this Chronicle, but I am going through 2 Soulcalibur characters and they're both strong, so that's Sophia and Tira. And then all the rest I ignore. Oh yeah, there is one more ice location. Our old companion Reese is here on this ice, but luckily we get to totally ignore her. Which is kind of sad, because I don't mind Reese as a normal character. She's one of the ones who talks a little bit. She's had her orphan moment in Chronicle 8. She was like, oh, what happened to these people? I remember happening to me, you know, the feels, but not that useful to us, unfortunately, so you guys just hang out. So now it's Tira. Tira is actually the one Soulcalibur character who has 2 classes. Both Thief and Assassin can use Tira because there are 12 normal classes and each one gets 2 characters. That means that that's 24 characters if you do basic math, 12 times 2. So that means one person has to be used twice, and Tira is the choice. In battle, of course, she is an assassin because why on earth would you give her a wimpy Thief class if she could be a powerful assassin instead? Makes sense to me. She's also one of the ones who really is perfect for her character, being an assassin. That just matches her so well. Alright, and Aeolus here, the boss in this part, is the second character, like Arion back in Chronicle 4, who is extremely tall, for no discernibly good reason, but he's a giant, so I guess it's cool. And he's the guy who, in the conversation before, gave all of my former allies the shards of soul edge when they're like, "Wait, Dancer is the head of the enemy army? No way we're gonna fight against her. Here, this gift from the Emperor. What are these sword shards? What are we supposed to do with them? Kill Dancer and her units. Must kill Dancer and her men." Yeah. So that was the situation we skipped through. I was a little bit miffed when I found out that killing him didn't free everybody else from his control, just Aeneas and Mega, who he defeated. Now, interestingly, the characters that you get to join your party, if you continue doing New Game Pluses, their experience will be saved. But they also do a one-time level jump between Chronicle 12 when they're removed and this Chronicle. If they're lower than a certain level, they'll be raised to that level at this Chronicle. But from that point onward, if you continue doing New Game Pluses and raise their level, they'll consistently be at the same level when they join. That only applies to them being recruited, though. If you've leveled your characters up, they won't be any stronger when you fight them in this Chronicle. Thank goodness, because that would be a pain if suddenly you were going through level 99 characters because you spent a lot of time leveling up your allies.
Battle 1. Fight.
Aeolus usually isn't too hard, but he does have all unblockable, so if he decides to be aggressive, I can do nothing about it. Take a bath. Me too.
It looks like I'm just too strong for you.
3 Chronicles remaining. I'm not making too bad time. I don't know if this will be good as my last marathon run, which despite even sitting around for... I almost ended up PBing it. If I'd had a much better final Chronicle, I would have gotten a PB. But, which is a world record since I'm the only runner of this. I don't know if I'm that close to it here. I don't have my splits in front of me, but... So a couple of interesting things about this Chronicle is that this is another one where if I lose my main character, I will, I die. I lose the Chronicle entirely. She can't recover, so I have to be careful with her. I'm gonna go that far because he's not gonna make it. And there's a lot of powerful enemies I have to fight, so I want to minimize the amount of fighting she does. So instead I use her as a red herring to lure away several of the enemies so I don't have to fight them. And I think I've done enough luring already. Come on, Slowpoke. So there's so this is our second battle against Abelia. Abelia has been put in charge of the last line of defense before the Imperial capital. And you know, she's, despite the fact that she's our friend and rival and whatever, all enemies of the Empire must be defeated. Much to the dismay of our other new soldiers we picked up, because they were Abelia's troops as much as they were mine. So. And so there's a mixture here. A couple of the units that we fought with her back in Chronicle 1 that she had are here, also leveled up, who are, I guess, expected to be her troops, even though they never join your army, even when she's serving under you. And in addition, there are a number of... yeah, it looks like he picked the wrong path. That's unfortunate. But in addition to that, there are a bunch of these other elites that I was talking about back in Chronicles 16. And this is where it really stands out to me, because these guys are all, once again, you know, high 40s, low 50s levels, very, very high. And having that similar appearance with the big, major red primary color tones. While Abelia's apparently 3 troops are much lower level. They're only in the mid-30s, so despite having leveled up from Chronicle 1, they're not nearly as high level as these other guys. I don't know, it's kind of really hard to explain, but it's just a weird undertone in the storyline to me that isn't explained well, but seems to have been the intent, that the Emperor has all these special elite guard who are prepared just to deal with us. Ooh, are they gonna make it? Are they gonna make it? Do these make it? I didn't go as far as I usually do, so I didn't quite lure as many as I normally would have. They're not gonna make it. I have to do it again. Let's see if I'm lucky. Even though I've been playing this so long, there's still so many little subtle things I'm trying to tweak and adjust. So here's Notice, he's only level 35, and he's one of the 2 troops that Abelia had before.
I'll take you anytime you want.
Now, because I started a battle with all... Yes, I have to give them all the order all over again. Normally I go out a lot farther with my leader, and so I get 3 people to come after me. The only problem with 3 people coming after me is that they'll actually make it through that top citadel and even possibly take my main citadel before I can finish off the enemy. So I have to fight at least one of them at one point. I was hoping to draw in maybe only 2. 2 would be the perfect number. Regardless, she makes a fine distraction. Those guys will be coming around, they won't reach me. So Siegfried is our Soulcalibur character here. Good old Siegfried. He is a knight. There we go.
Decisive battle.
Okay. How much of what I was saying about Siegfried got caught? So Siegfried's a knight, which makes sense. He's the next to last Soulcalibur character we're going to fight. His secondary outfit, he's more like a vagabond though, which is really good. Look for him too. He's pretty cool in the armor with the long hair. It's a good uniform. But I like his secondary outfit a little bit more, just based on the storyline of who he is in Soulcalibur. Yet in Soulcalibur 3, basically freed from Nightmare, he's now wandering across the land, trying to find a way to seal the evil sword, and keeping it and Soulcalibur hidden when it's also a giant sword form. 2 giant swords stuck, one stuck into the other, and he's trying to keep them hidden. How does he do that? But he looks more like a vagabond. His mission was reserve offense up, which is relatively tough. Again, once he gets low on health, he tends to do a lot of damage. And he already does a lot of damage because he's a 60 level knight with Siegfried style. He hits hard. But usually I can take him down without too many issues. Now, coming up here is going to be a important little factoid that this is one of the few Chronicles, and other than Chronicle 20, I think actually, it might be, well, it is the only Chronicle with strongholds in the game where I don't have to take the main stronghold. The objective is actually to defeat Avilia. Now this is it's what they call unusual normal tactical RPGs, strategy RPGs, and assassination mission. Your goal is just to assassinate a single unit. Now technically there have been a couple more of those, like a couple of the Luna fights and the Cluster Pemdo, where all you have to defeat is her and her Cluster Pemdo. However, in those ones it's kind of impossible to defeat her without taking the stronghold. However, in this Chronicle, I can defeat her and not take the stronghold. And I'm going to be taking advantage of that. It's the one point in the game where it's ever really realistic to do. Nowhere else are there units that are going to be in the main stronghold that you don't have to defeat.
Battle 1. Fight.
This is another powerful whirlwind. Kind of annoying.
I'm sorry, but I must move on.
And now is where I start using clever tactics I haven't actually had a chance to use yet. I managed to avoid needing them so far in this game. I used them on some of the earlier Chronicles occasionally. This is basically the plug maneuver. Because you're plugging up we're plugging up a hole, as you're about to see, to prevent things from slipping through. So like most enemy AI, the AI here on this Chronicle are programmed to rush back to the defense of the main stronghold if it comes under attack. However, there is a quirk in the way the game is programmed where an enemy cannot leave a stronghold via a path that is blocked by an enemy unit. So if the enemy is attacking stronghold here, they can't leave this way. Now, if I wanted to go through there, if I had an enemy blocking my path and I was defending a stronghold, I could initiate the battle. However, the AI will never initiate battles themselves unless, except for certain ones that stand out in the field that automatically initiate when you come in contact with them. Otherwise, they will wait until a stronghold is reduced to 0 before they'll, and combat is forced before they'll go into Soulcalibur combat. So as long as I keep one character here, blocking that hole, they'll just spend all day in there waiting for me to take their stronghold while I beat down that with the rest of my force. And meanwhile, my main stronghold's under attack, but it's only being attacked by 1 infantry. They'll never get through there before I get through theirs. So now it's just a little bit of wait. Again, Abilia has Guardian Force, which means she's a huge pain. And since it is the mission of the stronghold, it means whoever else is in the stronghold also has Guardian Force. That's important to remember. In the name of Grandal, I strike you down! Abilia, however, does not use the universal greeting of this continent.
I will not lose against a traitor, even if it is you.
Now the extra bad news is that Abilia does not have a weapon that reduces her health when she attacks, unlike the previous 2 characters, Eiji and Gerardo, who we had in this Guardian Force situation. The good news is that her stats are pretty horrid. Gerardo took chip damage from everything I did.
Battle 2, fight!
It's over.
I can mash my way to victory now. Okay, good. Alright, unfortunately, I still have 2 more enemies to go through who have Guardian Force.
Battle 3,
I can't do it. There's only one thing left to do. Seppuku!
Battle 4, fight!
Oh darn, I have to do it twice. Okay, fine. Just leave me alone. I'm done. I'm done. Okay. So as I said earlier, you don't actually have to take the stronghold. So I failed to take the stronghold. However, I defeated Abilia, which is the only actual the only actual victory condition for this chronicle. And considering that even though they're just weak generic soldiers, those 2 enemies also have Guardian Force, which means that they can be a huge pain to go through. So it's generally faster just to kill yourself rather than to try and kill those 2 instead. Now, if you take your main character there and try that tactic, though, it doesn't work because you lose if your main character is defeated, and even if Abilia is defeated too, it is. And oh look, here's Luna. Luna's suddenly here. Yep, Luna decided to help us out. And Abilia's also decided that she's going to give us a hand. Abilia's decided after all that, grr, yeah, you're my friend, I believe in you, or all soldiers support Dancer's unit. Even though she says that, Ishtar, and even though Ishtar is talking about it too, Ishtar and Notice do not join your group. Sadly, because it's always fun to have more meat shields. I mean, loyal soldiers. But also Luna showed up out of nowhere. So she explains that after the war, she was taken in by some annoying old man named Gerardo. And he used to tell her things like, if anything happens to me, you have to look after Dancer in my place. And so she gives us Soulcalibur, she says, so that we can battle Soul Edge with it. So still never explained where she got Soulcalibur, why she has it, but she does. And she gives it to us to fight Soul Edge with. That's storyline only. Soulcalibur weapon for her weapon style is unlocked after you complete Chronicles of the Sword for the first time, but you don't actually get it in the final battles leading up to there. Okay, Luna, whatever. So Luna's weapon style has never been one that I've been good with or enjoyed, but she is relatively useful because she joins at level 50. So she's a pretty good meat shield if you're playing casually and need someone who can just absorb a lot of hit points. So again, a couple things of interest on this map. I kind of haven't talked about them much, even though we've seen them before, but this has a couple more. There have been a couple of these strongholds over the course of the game. Most strongholds, when you destroy them, normal strongholds, they go down to level 2 and then down to level 1, and 1's the minimum and 3's the maximum you can raise them to. But there are a number of level 3 strongholds who do not get reduced because they're strong points. The bridges back in Chronicle 5, these towers, the big central island place of Chronicle 10. So that makes them kind of useful as a return point. Way over here in this place we have End, the level 99 super boss. I had it as a donation incentive that unfortunately was not met to fight End. So we won't get to see that today. He's a very famous super boss for anyone who's played this. He's level 99, he's a sword master. His stats are outrageous. He uses the katana, he'll kill you in several hits. He's got aerial wind, and he uses a couple of knock-up attacks that leave you floating in the air. That's the first time you'll probably really see it. So he's a relatively tough boss, but I would be hard-pressed to put him in the top 5 worst fights, really. If you use strats like this with your own, with Spin to Win and Sword Master, you might lose a character. But most of the time I can beat him just with the Dancer. And at least using these strats, I've never used more than one. I did a emulator run about a month and a half ago where I did a fresh file. I did an actual straight new game. And the whole reason I did it was because somebody posted on a YouTube video to my 100% run that, oh, you defeated End. You can never do that if you didn't have a game already set up. And I was like, yes, I can. I'll prove it. And so I did an entire stream run of a fresh file defeating all enemies just so that I could have record of a brand fresh game defeating End.
Battle 3, fight.
Behold the annoying power of katanas. And that is the super annoying power of katanas. The AI is so good with them. Okay, I need to buckle down. For some reason, they're being very difficult today.
Did I do it? Did I do it? Did I do it?
I didn't do it. Well, I think this has put to bed any chances of getting a PB on this run. This is going to cost me a lot of time. This guy's tough. These guys are. Any of these guys can be really hard, but this is outrageous.
You picked the wrong person to fight.
I guess that guy decided that since we weren't fighting End, he was going to do his best impression. He did a pretty darn good one. He defeated more people than I did in my practice run against End yesterday. I lost my Dancer in that run, and oh, I was horrified. Now I lost 2 to this girl. Nobody. Definitely gonna have to build that up. Oh well. You go there. Yeah, that's perfect. I'm gonna go ahead and fortify this so they'll recover closer. Since there's 2 of them, it'll save a lot of time. So down here is our last Soulcalibur character, Nightmare. Unfortunately, the final Soulcalibur character boss is a bit of a just a little bit. It's a disappointing boss. It's very anticlimactic because Nightmare is a barbarian. I don't know why Nightmare is a barbarian, but they decided, I guess, since Iron Sword is the generic weapon, the base weapon for the barbarian class, that Nightmare, the weapon it's based on, should also be a barbarian. Even though Rock would have fit a whole lot better, and as it stands, you know, the main idea of Soulcalibur 3, the main battle purpose is between Siegfried and Nightmare, you know, the main struggle between them. They're 2 of the most important characters for that. But with Nightmare being a barbarian and Siegfried being a knight, it seems... And I'm a huge Siegfried fan, but that makes it awfully way too put in Nightmare's favor, if you ask me. Or put in Siegfried's favor against Nightmare, yeah. Because if their level 60 versions of themselves with stats were to go against each other, Siegfried wouldn't lose most of the time. So as a barbarian, his AI isn't super great either. And all he has in his mission is poison. So he'll be pretty easy to dispatch. I can do it with 1 character.
Final battle, fight!
Now you can really start to see where the problems would come in if I had a party of dancers. These guys are all tending to
Did you enjoy
be a
my
lot better at
dance?
hitting me before I can get my my combo set up, my stun lock. Because it's a real, dancers are a really high risk, high reward strategy, the very essence of it. Actually, we run back, whoever you are. If the fight goes well, if everything was working well, then they will dominate pretty strongly. They'll kill things a lot faster even than sword masters with katanas.
Final battle.
There's no way of getting around it. They can hardly block it all, but if they decide to be aggressive and attack before it gets set up, then you're dead. Just like that.
It will be a long time before my sword is complete.
There's a second coin collector here. That's an interesting mission. I hardly got to talk about it because I was getting crap kicked out of me by Sophitia. But coin collectors are an interesting, amusing thing. I think the only thing they do is give you more money based on the number of coins you collect, which is kind of pointless since I have max money. But sometimes when the fight's going well, trying to collect the maximum amount of coins I can is a fun little mini game.
Decisive battle.
All right.
Battle 1. Fight!
Take a bath. a couple of more interesting missions here. It's the first time since Chronicle 11 that had the special ones that we see double missions, unique missions that are combinations of other missions. One of them is particularly interesting. We're going to take a look at here once I get everything set up. Got a couple more guys to get through. Another interesting thing here is that unlike most of the Chronicles where the generic guys are at the very front, or even if they're at the back, they charge forward and they're among the first guys you fight, the generics in this mission are all back here right at the entrance, and there are 4 of them. One of them rushes, at some point when you're approaching, he decides to run back, or she decides to run back into the main stronghold and defend it, while the other 3 stand outside still. I have no idea why. It seems like the weirdest bit of AI programming.
Before my sword is
Seems
complete.
very random.
Battle 1. Fight. Ring out. Final battle. Fight.
It's over. This time, I am the victor.
Okay, so once again, a plug maneuver. I'm plugging this place up so she won't come out. She, by the way, has a mission Paralysis Glue, which is a combination of paralysis and glue. We barely got to see paralysis. Aurelia had it, but never got a hit on us. If you have paralysis, your weapon glows yellow, and if you hit somebody, they immediately go into a stagger stun and fall to the ground, regardless of what kind of hit it is, unless it's like a big knockback. But Mad Struggle, I can't remember exactly what it does, but it's something about increasing attack power. I think it's reserve offense up plus attack up or something. All unblockable. This is the best one though. Cure Sapalit. This is very bad English, which is supposed to be Cure Separate. It's a combination of both Cure and Separate. Unfortunately, you never really get to see it in action. Well, fortunately, I guess, you never get to see it in action because no enemies ever want to go into that one. Maybe if you came from underneath or something. Now Nightmare, as I say, he's a barbarian. I don't like his secondary look very much. He's one of the few.
Final battle. Fight.
He does look more like a barbarian like this, I guess, as compared to the Azure Knight. I mean, again, he should have been a knight. It's even in his name. I shouldn't have known that. Of course, today of all days, he's going to be really strong. Possibly cause me a huge headache. There we go. Still haven't lost to him.
You are not worthy to challenge me.
Yep, definitely not going to PB, but this is still going to be almost certainly a sub 4 hour. That's really good. I usually take 5 to 10 minutes to beat the final Chronicle, depending on how tough Strife decides to be. And once again, the final stronghold in the game, all guard break. Kind of a disappointing mission. The final boss, kind of a disappointing boss. Chester's back. Yes, Chester survived. He was recovered by the Emperor and has been forced to be his lapdog for the past year. He dreams, of course, of regaining a throne of his own, but naturally you're standing his way and he wants revenge on you. But he's a level 60 sword master. But again, he's Chester with a dagger.
Battle.
He's disappointing.
Battle 1. Fight.
Yes, indeed. Tenacious as a cockroach. Wow. I only have 86 victories with my dancer. Usually she's over 100.
Battle 2. Fight.
My route had some weird things happen to it this time. 5 deaths on her is kind of high too. It's no surprise that I'm not on really PV pace. And cockroach has been squashed.
I'll take you anytime you want.
87 victories now. Is that it? Good grief. Strife. She quietly stepped forward. Okay, now finally, after all this time to go back to inventory. Yep, unfortunately it didn't do him a lot of good. I'm not doing it right. There we go. Okay, so no strongholds on this Chronicle, so there's no recovering any characters you lose. And again, you lose if your main character is destroyed. So, I figured out, rather than trying to fight every one of these battles individually, since none of the enemies move here, same as in the tutorial, it begins as it ends, with enemies standing in place. So rather than trying to fight them all in difficult Soulcalibur combat, especially when they can annihilate my dancer, I can gang up on them 5-1 and actually use this mini-map combat. Voila. So, you have 5. 11. Okay, that's not too bad. I was examining the losses that I've suffered so far this run for future reference, since I'm not on PB pace anyway. The one interesting thing about this strategy that I've recently changed is that the weird way that it tracks along trails when you're giving move orders is that when it hits a fork and it can't go the direction you're just doing, like you go up and you hit this first side branch here, where the road goes around, it chooses, at each different section, it's different every time. But the game itself has a default left or right based on whichever fork it is, and the default here is left. So I usually take, because it's kind of a tricky area to maneuver around. But then I realized that the guy over here on the right, who we killed instead, is about 150 hit points less than that knight on the left. Therefore, it's faster to go through him. So when I can do it right, and it takes a little bit more maneuvering though, because I have to lean slightly to the right when I come into there, and then pull back before I go all the way over through that guy, because we don't need to fight him. Okay, main character can't be the front runner of any more fights. She's taken as much damage as she can. However, it's very good that she's taken all that damage because I don't want to use her against the final boss for two reasons. Number one, she has a very good chance of losing. And number two, there is a cutscene that plays if you do if before the battle begins, that you only see if the main character starts combat with Strife. And of course, cutscenes are slow, so we don't want to see it. I offered as a donation incentive a chance to see that cutscene, as well as something even more interesting in the final battle, but Baby Rage Victory was not met, so I did not get any donations to my incentives this time around, sadly. I have 2 undamaged characters. That is very good. That gives me a very good chance of beating Strife in short order. That was very ideal. It's kind of random how your characters go through there. The damage dealt is set based on your stats, your unit type, your levels, and the stats of a particular enemy. But the directions that they choose to wander around are kind of... It's kind of random, and I don't really know what determines it. A lot of the subtlest things in this game are done by just the order that you put guys in. That's okay. I really didn't talk about it much through the week either. I was too sick to worry about it. I was just hoping I would be well enough to do this run. Oh yeah, I saw the glow and for a second was worried that he was a Guardian Force. He isn't. Thank goodness. He just has really outrageous stats. He has the second most hit points in the game. The other most hit points in the game, the only one with more than him, is this one character that we just ignored to the right there, who has 7 more hit points than him, 894. He has 887. He has Soul Edge. It's a very powerful Soul Edge. Time is coming up as soon as the red shield on the right grays out, basically. Right now. That's time.
You are not worthy to challenge me.
That was a pretty good time. 3:49:20, I think, is world record, my PB. So 4 minutes off is not bad at all for a marathon run. Had a couple of oddly rough fights, but the beginning was super awesome and had a good string of things going. Let me double check it again. I can double check really fast, but I think it's 3:49:20. Channel. There we are. My channel. 3:49:50 actually. So 30 seconds is that. 3:06:20 is my ending
Emperor
percent.
died. Both the evil blade and the holy blade disappeared into darkness. The empire collapsed, and the people were left only with devastated lands and the memories.
So this super
of the
duper quick
terrible
ending,
war.
this is only like another minute, has
The people,
one thing I'd
however,
like to show off since I didn't
eventually
get any
forgot the
donations in.
hardships. They rebuilt the razed villages and sowed new seeds upon
Yep,
the
I
destroyed
will look at what's
fields.
available there. So just pay attention to the statue coming up. It's super awesome and the last thing we need to see.
Then by the fireside, they told the tales of the great ones who spilt their
Hooray
blood
for
upon
animatronic
those
moving
lands.
hand statues from the Middle Ages. That was Soulcalibur 3 Chronicles of the Sword. Thanks for watching. Thanks for having me in the marathon. Keep watching for a lot of great other fighting game speedruns. coming up. And just let me know when you're ready for me to cut off.